Good evening, friends. Tonight, our thoughts will gently wander into the ancient Greek myths and the profound, quiet wisdom of healing practices. Please dim your lights, find comfort beneath your blanket, and allow the day's clamor to recede. We are embarking on a journey with Asclepius tonight, the mortal who ascended to become the revered god of healing. You will uncover the origins of medicine in ancient Greece, how prophetic dreams guided miraculous cures, and the symbolic significance of serpents in relation to health. Each narrative will unfold gradually, much like the turning pages of an ancient, well-worn tome. Now, with the lights lowered and perhaps a gentle fan providing a soft, ambient hum, let us commence our exploration. You now find yourself amidst the undulating hills of ancient Thessaly, where the morning mist tenderly embraces the olive groves, and the very air is redolent with the fragrance of wild herbs. This is the precise setting where our tale commences, not with the dramatic peals of thunder and flashes of lightning characteristic of many Greek narratives, but with a more subdued beginning. The poignant tragedy of affection and sorrow that would ultimately bestow upon the world its most distinguished healer. Envision Coronis, a mortal woman whose dark tresses shimmered in the sunlight like burnished bronze. Her movements through her daily chores possessed the effortless grace of one deeply connected to the earth. She meticulously ground grain, carefully tended small fires, and skillfully wove cloth on a rudimentary loom. Her hands were perpetually engaged, perpetually crafting something of practical value. Unbeknownst to her, Apollo, the resplendent god of light and melodious music, observed her from the concealing shadows of the cypress trees. One might naturally ponder what profound quality would draw an immortal deity to a mere mortal woman. It was not solely her striking beauty, though she possessed a loveliness akin to that of wildflowers, innately natural and oblivious to its own inherent charm. It was something more profound. Perhaps it was the gentle hum she produced while working, creating melodies that even Apollo, the master of music, found utterly captivating. Or perhaps it was her innate compassion towards the ailing and injured, who occasionally sought solace at her humble dwelling, receiving the unreserved aid she offered through poultices fashioned from mountain herbs. Apollo approached her, not in his full, blinding divine majesty, which would surely incapacitate mortal eyes, but disguised as a youthful man with hair the color of gold and hands bearing the telltale calluses indicative of honest labor. Their affection blossomed in the manner characteristic of those simpler epochs. Gradually, through shared conversations and extended perambulations among the verdant hills, he assisted her in gathering medicinal flora, and she, in turn, imparted to him the knowledge of which roots alleviated pain and which leaves possessed the power to staunch bleeding. For a period, they experienced profound happiness. Apollo encountered a sentiment he had seldom known, the tranquil contentment inherent in mortal love. There were no grand exploits, no epic quests, merely serene evenings by the hearth, envisioning the child they knew was soon to arrive. Coronis's abdomen grew gracefully round, and she would gently guide Apollo's hand to feel the nascent movements of their baby. Neither of them comprehended that they were nurturing the future god of healing. However, deities, even those deeply enmeshed in love, cannot indefinitely forsake their divine responsibilities. Apollo was compelled to return to his celestial chariot and guide the sun across the firmament each day. He had prayers to answer and poets to inspire. He departed from Coronis with solemn vows of return, and she, in her innocent faith, believed him implicitly, for she had no cause to doubt his divine word. It is at this juncture that the narrative veers into its sorrowful trajectory, a shift one can almost presage, much like an impending change in the atmospheric conditions. Alone and with child, Coronis encountered Ischys, a mortal man from a neighboring settlement. In stark contrast to Apollo, Ischys could offer her something the god could not: a conventional existence, a husband who would be present each evening, children who would mature under the constant presence of their father. One can readily comprehend her difficult decision, can one not? To love a god is to love an entity belonging to the entire cosmos. To love a mortal, however, offered the singular possibility of belonging solely to each other. Thus, Coronis made the fateful choice that would ultimately cost her everything. She consented to marry Ischys, perhaps believing that Apollo, in his divine wisdom, would understand that gods moved on from mortal affections with the same ease that seasons transitioned. But Apollo became aware of her decision through his sacred crow, which had witnessed Coronis in the company of her new paramour. The bird swiftly conveyed its observations, anticipating commendation for its unwavering loyalty. Instead, Apollo's wrath ignited with such ferocious intensity that the crow's pristine white feathers were scorched black by the divine fury. From that day onward, all crows bear the somber hue of Apollo's indignation, a perpetual reminder of how betrayed love can irrevocably transform even innocent messengers. Divine love, when subjected to betrayal, burns with an intensity far greater than mere mortal jealousy. Apollo's rage was not the clamorous, destructive kind one might anticipate. Instead, it was cold and absolute, akin to winter's unforgiving grip settling upon the land. He dispatched his sister Artemis, the formidable goddess of the hunt, to inflict punishment upon Coronis with her silver arrows. This agonizing decision stemmed from profound pain, not inherent cruelty, though the ultimate outcome would remain tragically identical. Envision the scene on that dreadful morning. Coronis was engaged in the mundane task of hanging laundry on a line strung between two ancient olive trees, her abdomen heavy with the life she carried. The fabrics, simple linen tunics and woolen cloaks, fluttered gently in the soft breeze. She was humming that very melody that had initially captivated Apollo's attention, utterly oblivious to the silent, inexorable approach of death. Her movements were now deliberate, overtly protective of the precious life within her. Artemis materialized like a shadow stepping into the full brilliance of sunlight, her bow already drawn taut. The goddess of the hunt derived no gratification from this grim assignment, yet she could not defy her brother's solemn directive. There were no dramatic pronouncements, no final words of condemnation. The arrow flew swiftly and unerringly, and Coronis collapsed among the damp clothes, her hand instinctively moving to shield the child within her, even as her own life force ebbed away. But it is precisely here that the narrative unveils its deeper, more profound truth concerning healing and loss. As Coronis lay dying, something stirred within her, not merely the unborn child, but a pervasive sorrow that resonated even with the gods. She did not utter curses against Apollo or vehemently rail against her predetermined fate. Instead, her final thoughts were entirely dedicated to the child who would never experience his mother's tender lullabies or feel her gentle hands checking his forehead for fever. Her last words constituted a whispered supplication that her son would discover a tranquility far greater than his parents had ever known. Apollo arrived as her breathing grew shallow and labored, and in that precise moment, the deity who commands the very sun felt an irreparable fracture within his immortal heart. He perceived the immense cost of his jealousy, not only Coronis's precious life, but also his son's chance to experience the boundless embrace of maternal love. The God who illuminates the world had, in his rage, wrought only darkness, and the crushing weight of that realization would irrevocably shape all that was yet to transpire. The God who commands the sun's fiery chariot could not resurrect the deceased, yet he possessed the power to salvage the child. With hands steadier and more precise than any mortal surgeon's, he performed what is historically considered the first recorded caesarean section, carefully extracting the infant from his mother's womb, just as her spirit ascended to the shadowy realm of the underworld. This pivotal moment thus became the inaugural surgical procedure in Greek mythology, executed not from accumulated medical expertise, but from an overwhelming, desperate surge of love. The infant, destined to be named Asclepius, emitted a robust cry, the powerful voice of one marked for extraordinary achievements. Apollo cradled his son and discerned in the infant's countenance an echo of Coronis's innate gentleness, mingled with an unmistakable spark of the divine. This child would embody healing where Apollo had wrought destruction. He would alleviate suffering where his father had caused it. The god immediately grasped that this was simultaneously a profound gift and an immense burden. His son was fated to spend an eternity mending what divine anger had fractured. Apollo tenderly enveloped the baby in Coronis's cloak, which still retained the warmth of her body and carried the faint, earthy scent of the herbs she so diligently gathered. He breathed into the tiny lungs not merely the essence of life, but also a profound sense of purpose. This child would intrinsically comprehend pain because his very genesis was steeped in tragedy. He would intimately know loss because his existence itself eloquently spoke of the ultimate sacrifice made for his life. Every single cure he would eventually administer would serve as a solemn tribute to the mother he was never destined to know. The god gazed down at his son and made a momentous decision that would reverberate through countless centuries. This child would not be nurtured on the lofty heights of Mount Olympus among the other gods, where he might absorb their often casual cruelty and their divine indifference to the tribulations of mortal existence. Instead, Apollo would entrust him to an entity who understood both the inherent fragility of life and the immense power required to preserve it. Someone who recognized that true healing demanded not only exceptional skill, but also profound wisdom acquired through arduous experience. As Apollo carried the infant away from the tragic scene, one might perceive the quiet profundity of this particular moment. There were no booming thunderclaps or ostentatious miraculous signs, merely a father holding his son, traversing the very same hills where that son's mother had once diligently gathered her healing herbs. The inexorable cycle of death and subsequent healing had already commenced its intricate dance, although neither god nor infant yet fully comprehended its far-reaching significance. The baby slumbered peacefully in his father's protective embrace, utterly unaware that his mother's untimely demise would serve as the driving force propelling him to master the very arts that might have, under different circumstances, saved her. He remained ignorant of the fact that her gentle hands, which once meticulously sorted herbs and bound wounds, had, through divine inheritance, passed their unparalleled healing touch directly to him. But Apollo, burdened by this weighty knowledge, understood, and it pressed upon him with the force of insurmountable chains. Apollo paused deliberately at the periphery of a dense, ancient forest, where colossal trees grew in a silence far older than human memory itself. Somewhere within that verdant darkness resided Chiron, the wisest of all centaurs, renowned for his unparalleled skill in medicine, and the revered tutor of legendary heroes. The god knew with absolute certainty that what his son now urgently required was not divine omnipotence, but rather the patient, enduring wisdom that emanates from a deep understanding of both mortal frailty and the meticulous, compassionate art of healing. The forest appeared to embrace them, its boughs gracefully parting as if acknowledging the profound significance of their journey. Avian melodies ceased their vibrant chorus as the two figures passed, and even the breeze seemed to hold its breath. This was undeniably consecrated ground. They were stepping into a domain where temporal currents shifted and sagacity accumulated like a rich stratum of fallen foliage, verdant with the decomposition of archaic knowledge, slowly transmogrifying into novel insights. As this initial segment of Asclepius's narrative concludes, one might ponder the enigmatic interplay of sorrow and beneficence. A mother's demise paves the way for the advent of a supreme healer. Affection blossoms into treachery. Treachery precipitates profound bereavement, and from this very loss springs forth the genesis of medical science itself. Coronis's ultimate sacrifice thus transmutes into the foundational cornerstone of every medical facility. Every practitioner's meticulous touch, every therapeutic intervention that alleviates human suffering. Yet, perhaps there resides solace in the profound realization that from the deepest chasms of despair can emerge the most extraordinary boons. Asclepius would henceforth embody his mother's innate tenderness and his father's celestial might. These qualities refined by the poignant awareness that every existence is precious precisely because it is ephemeral. This profound comprehension would elevate him beyond a mere physician, establishing him as the preeminent healer, one whose ministrations are motivated by genuine affection rather than by mere obligation. The sylvan expanse deepened around Apollo as he cradled his infant son. One could almost perceive the primeval tranquility that enshrouded them. These were woodlands where the flow of time diverged, where each venerable tree had stood steadfast for millennia, and every cast shadow harbored the spectral memories of heroes long past. The deity's footsteps produced no sound upon the luxuriant, deep carpet of desiccated leaves. However, an entity ahead of them sensed their approach. Chiron the centaur materialized from a cluster of ancient oak trees, like an ethereal being stepping forth from a subconscious vision. In stark contrast to the untamed, inebriated centaurs of mythological lore, Chiron moved with the stately dignity of a profound scholar and the inherent grace of an individual who had dedicated millennia to mastering patience. His equine physique was robust and earth-toned, meticulously constructed for the deliberate task of conveying injured creatures to sanctuary. His human torso exuded the quiet fortitude of someone who had facilitated countless births and meticulously mended fractured bones with hands more delicate than any mortal surgeon's. One observes Apollo's approach to his venerable comrade, for such was Chiron, one of the rare beings in all creation capable of conversing with divine entities on equal terms. The centaur's discerning gaze immediately absorbed the entire tableau. The god's countenance, shadowed by sorrow. The infant swathed in a woman's mantle, the pervasive scent of tragedy that clung to both like residual smoke. Chiron, having witnessed an abundance of celestial drama, possessed the acumen to decipher these omens without requiring explicit elucidation. Coronis. Chiron inquired softly, and Apollo's silent affirmation conveyed the entire harrowing saga. The centaur extended hands that had cradled nascent heroes and ministered to dying warriors, accepting the infant with the confident precision of one who had safeguarded untold thousands of fragile lives. "He possesses her eyes," Chiron remarked, and Apollo was seen to wince at the undeniable truth of the observation. Even in his slumber, the infant's visage bore a distinct echo of his mother's gentle mien. Thus began Asclepius's upbringing within the verdant heart of the deep forest. Residing in a cavern permeated by the scent of desiccated botanicals and ancient erudition, Chiron's abode bore no resemblance to the opulent marble edifices of the gods. It was meticulously sculpted from living rock, featuring recesses that cradled earthenware vessels containing medicinal preparations and shelves laden with ancient scrolls documenting centuries of therapeutic knowledge. Bundles of herbs hung from the ceiling like aromatic supplications, and a modest fire perpetually glowed at the cave's core, perpetually ready to steep infusions or warm topical remedies. The cave exuded a vibrant vitality unparalleled by mortal dwellings. Water permeated the walls through meticulously controlled conduits that Chiron had engineered over centuries, establishing natural cooling mechanisms and pristine potable sources. Fungi flourished in carefully cultivated patches, some designated for sustenance, and others for medicinal application. The sagacious centaur had transmuted his dwelling into a living apothecary, where every surface served the intricate art of healing. One might envision young Asclepius taking his tentative initial steps upon the yielding earth, just beyond Chiron's cave entrance. The centaur observed with unwavering patience as the toddler explored, diligently ensuring he did not stray towards the noxious flora that thrived in the forest's shaded recesses. However, Chiron did not deter the boy from touching the innocuous herbs, those possessing curative rather than harmful properties. Even at the tender age of 2, Asclepius displayed an uncommon tenderness towards all living beings. One might naturally inquire about the experience of being nurtured by a centaur. Chiron synthesized the practical sagacity of a rural physician with the mythic understanding of one who had tutored both deities and legendary figures. Yet his pedagogical methodology was remarkably unpretentious. He eschewed formal lectures or demands for rote memorization. Instead, he demonstrated through action and allowed inherent curiosity to guide the learning process. Every lesson unfolded organically from the bounty the forest provided. When Asclepius reached the age of 4, Chiron led him to observe a deer with an injured limb, limping through the woodland. The centaur did not immediately rush to offer assistance. Rather, he and the young boy quietly positioned themselves behind a fallen log, observing and learning. "What do you perceive?" Chiron inquired, and Asclepius meticulously detailed how the deer favored one leg, how its movements were notably slower than usual, and how it frequently paused to rest against tree trunks. "Should we intervene?" the boy questioned. Chiron contemplated this query with solemnity. Such pivotal teaching moments necessitated meticulous handling. Indeed, we should, he eventually affirmed, but with utmost caution. Fear can inflict as much harm as a physical wound. He then demonstrated to Asclepius the proper method of slow approach, speaking in hushed, tranquil tones designed not to alarm the injured creature. The deer did not flee, perhaps sensing the benevolent intent in their demeanor, or perhaps recognizing Chiron's familiar, reassuring presence. Chiron's hands operated with practiced dexterity, examining the deer's leg for fractures, discovering instead a deeply embedded thorn within its hoof. He extracted it with a bronze blade so exquisitely honed it seemed to cleave through agony itself, then applied a poultice of herbs formulated to avert infection. Asclepius gently stabilized the deer's head, softly stroking its neck and whispering soothing words he had assimilated from observing Chiron's interactions with other patients. This established the fundamental pattern of the boy's comprehensive education. Each succeeding day presented novel lessons disguised as commonplace encounters. A fledgling with a fractured wing imparted knowledge about bone setting and the intricate biomechanics of avian flight. A rabbit afflicted with infected eyes underscored the importance of gentle cleansing and the appropriate botanicals for alleviating inflammation. A serpent with damaged scales unveiled the arcane secrets of dermatological ailments and their remedies, though Asclepius remained unaware of the profound significance serpents would come to hold in his destiny. By the time Asclepius attained the age of 7, he could precisely identify dozens of medicinal plants by their visual characteristics and olfactory profiles. He possessed the discernment to distinguish between fungi that healed and those that proved lethal, between roots that assuaged discomfort and berries that mitigated febrile conditions. More crucially, he was internalizing profound lessons incapable of being gleaned from any written tome. Enduring patience in the face of suffering, compassionate gentleness towards fear, and the quiet, unwavering persistence that authentic healing inherently demands. Chiron meticulously instructed him that medicine transcended mere factual knowledge. It constituted an intricate relationship between the healer and the patient. Mikodika, a topical application administered with animosity, will not yield the same therapeutic efficacy as an identical application imbued with empathy. The centaur elucidated, as they attended to a wolf suffering from an infected paw. The botanical elements respond to our underlying intent, and so too do the creatures we endeavor to assist. This was not some esoteric mysticism, but rather pragmatic wisdom. Agitated patients invariably recuperate more slowly than those who remain calm. One might readily envision them on a typical morning, collaborating within the confines of the herb garden that Chiron had painstakingly cultivated over centuries. The plot presented a seemingly disorganized aspect to the untrained observer, with plants flourishing seemingly haphazardly, devoid of apparent structure. However, Asclepius was progressively discerning the underlying, profound pattern. Towering plants furnishing shade for more delicate species, roots that enhanced soil quality growing alongside herbs requiring nutrient-rich earth, and medicinal flora strategically positioned to safeguard edible vegetables from detrimental insects. Nature inherently possesses the capacity for self-restoration, Chiron expounded as they carefully transplanted seedlings, their roots still clinging to the nurturing soil. Our imperative is not to contend with her innate sagacity, but rather to comprehend it and operate in harmony with its principles. He demonstrated to Asclepius how specific plant species coexisted symbiotically in their wild habitats, forging natural alliances that mutually reinforced their vitality. Medical practice mirrors this dynamic, he added. A single herb might offer modest amelioration. However, two herbs acting synergistically can engender veritable marvels. As Asclepius matured, Chiron commenced his instruction in the intricate science of anatomy. Utilizing himself as an unparalleled instructional model, the centaur's singular composition, part human, part equine, rendered him a living compendium of comparative physiology. He meticulously elucidated the circulatory pathways of blood through disparate biological systems, the mechanics of muscular contractions, moving skeletal structures, and the rhythmic pulsations of the heart sustaining vitality in creatures both mortal and immortal. Asclepius acquired the skill of palpating pulses, of recognizing the telltale indicators of fever, and of comprehending the inherent tempo at which injuries underwent resolution. These profound lessons transcended the purely physical realm. Chiron imparted to the boy the crucial interdependence between the psyche and the soma. How persistent anxiety could impede the healing trajectory of wounds, and conversely, how mental tranquility could accelerate the process of recovery. Observe the comportment of animals when they are injured, the centaur suggested. They instinctively seek out serene sanctuaries for repose. They do not resist the intrinsic healing process. Humanity could derive invaluable insight from this fundamental wisdom. However, an arguably more profound educational experience unfolded when Asclepius reached the age of 12, and Chiron was struck down by an enigmatic malady that rendered him enfeebled and febrile. For the inaugural occasion, the young boy perceived his revered mentor not as an infallible guide, but as a susceptible patient, exposed and desperately requiring succor. This profound and unexpected reversal of roles instilled a trepidation within him, far greater than any encounter with an injured creature had ever managed. A cascade of unsettling questions assailed his mind. What if his burgeoning medical capabilities proved insufficient? What if he committed grave errors in judgment? What if the most sagacious entity he had ever known proved beyond recovery? Even amidst the throes of his debilitating condition, Chiron sagaciously discerned the immense pedagogical opportunity that had presented itself. True healing commences with the acceptance that our dominion over all outcomes is inherently limited, he softly murmured from his repose upon a bed of luxuriant furs. His utterance, though rasping and gravelly, retained an underlying tone of profound tenderness. There are instances when we achieve a complete restoration of health, others where our sole recourse is to provide solace and ease, and yet other times when our duty is merely to remain steadfastly present with affliction until its natural abatement. He meticulously instructed Asclepius through the intricate therapeutic regimen, precisely which botanical remedies to select, the correct methodology for their preparation, the critical junctures for monitoring physiological shifts, and the nuanced discernment required to identify both amelioration and deterioration. For a relentless span of 3 days and 3 nights, Asclepius ministered to his ailing mentor with the unwavering dedication typically reserved for a son caring for a cherished progenitor. He meticulously concocted herbal infusions, ensuring they possessed precisely the desired potency, and assiduously administered cooling compresses to alleviate the centaur's escalating fever. He maintained a vigilant vigil, sitting in quiet contemplation through the protracted periods when slumber eluded the suffering Chiron. The centaur's ordinarily regular respiration grew strenuous and arduous, and in these intense moments, the young boy began to decipher the nuanced indicators of a physical form valiantly contending for its restoration. As the fourth morning dawned, Chiron's debilitating fever receded with the sudden clarity of daybreak, following a protracted darkness. Perspiration glistened upon the centaur's brow, yet his skin now felt temperate upon contact. His respiration deepened and regularized, signaling a significant shift. The critical juncture had definitively concluded, and both the venerable instructor and his diligent pupil intuitively grasped that a momentous transformation had transpired. Asclepius had effectively traversed the boundary from a mere spectator to an active practitioner, evolving from one who merely aided to one who fully assumed accountability. "You performed admirably," Chiron articulated with deceptive simplicity, yet his words carried the profound weight of formal recognition and solemn validation. Asclepius, for his part, instinctively understood that an indelible alteration had occurred deep within his very being. The profound metamorphosis transpired with such imperceptible subtlety that he scarcely perceived its unfolding, much like the gentle, gradual advance of aurora across the sylvan expanse. One day, he was merely a pupil diligently mastering methodologies. The next, he had become a practitioner rendering critical judgments that held the demarcation between vitality and demise. As Asclepius entered the cusp of his adolescence, the renown of his burgeoning aptitudes began to proliferate far beyond the confines of the forest. Wounded huntsmen, having heard whispers and compelling accounts of a nascent physician capable of performing seemingly supernatural feats, gravitated towards the centaur's secluded cave in search of succor. Chiron observed with paternal satisfaction as his prodigious student ministered to every individual with identical meticulous diligence, irrespective of their social standing or financial wherewithal. The young man displayed no partiality whatsoever, extending the same compassionate care to the affluent trader as he did to the impoverished logger. One tranquil evening, as they reclined beside their hearth, meticulously compounding remedies for the ensuing day, Chiron began to discourse upon Asclepius's coming prospects, employing the sagacious pronouncements of one who had witnessed countless pupils embark upon their distinct paths. "You have now assimilated every facet of knowledge I possess concerning botanical remedies and the treatment of somatic injuries," he declared, his hands rhythmically pulverizing desiccated botanicals with a mortar and pestle rendered lustrous by eons of attrition. However, the art of therapeutic practice transcends mere physical ailments. Aspirations, fervent supplications, optimism, and even profound despondency, these too are integral components of medicine. He then recounted to Asclepius tales of the venerable ancient temples where the processes of physical restoration and spiritual devotion profoundly converged, places where patients sought not solely corporeal amelioration, but also a revitalization of the soul. "The paternal endowments of your father are undeniably manifesting within your being," Chiron remarked, noting with keen perception how Flora appeared more receptive to the boy's gentle touch, and how sufferers consistently experienced swifter recuperation under his dedicated care. "Soon, you shall be compelled to ascertain the profound essence of being simultaneously celestial and physician." The centaur's pronouncements were indeed prescient. As Asclepius neared the threshold of manhood, his therapeutic powers began to transcend anything that mere ordinary human comprehension could achieve. Lacerations mended with accelerated speed beneath his hands. Febrile brows cooled as temperatures subsided the moment he placed his palms upon them. Botanicals, when he gathered them, seemed to augment their inherent curative attributes, as if his very touch unlocked their deepest, dormant efficacy. Yet, with the escalation of his inherent potency came an expanding accountability. Asclepius began to fully comprehend the profound rationale behind his father's decision to entrust him to this sagacious mentor. Chiron had imparted to him far more than mere therapeutic expertise. He had meticulously cultivated an ethical bedrock that would unerringly direct his celestial might towards profound empathy rather than self-aggrandizing pride. The venerable centaur had unequivocally demonstrated that genuine restoration served the sanctity of existence itself, entirely eschewing the vanity and self-importance of the practitioner. On the momentous day, Asclepius ultimately departed the Sylvan domain to commence his vocation in the broader realm of humanity. Chiron bestowed upon him a staff, meticulously fashioned from a bough of the venerable arboreal sentinel beneath which they had first encountered. The wood felt polished and comforting to the touch, having been matured by years of careful, deliberate craftsmanship. "Always recall," the centaur pronounced, "that authentic restoration necessitates both the sagacity to discern appropriate action and the profound modesty to embrace that which proves immutable." As the nascent healer departed from his sylvan sanctuary, he traversed with innate ease across distinct realms, bearing celestial endowments that were profoundly mitigated by a deep mortal empathy, and exercising an erudition rendered sagacious through profound insight. The weeping babe whom Apollo had delivered to these verdant woods had now evolved into an emergent entity, neither entirely deific nor wholly mortal, yet uniquely predisposed to bridge these dual existences and attend diligently to both domains. His mother's inherent tenderness and his mentor's profound sagacity would undoubtedly steer him through the forthcoming tribulations. The youthful Asclepius departed from Chiron's secluded sylvan refuge, and one could readily envision the palpable heft of the unadorned satchel of hide draped across his shoulder. Contained within its unassuming confines were the initial implements of his therapeutic art. Not enchanted relics imbued with celestial luminescence, but rather humble apparatuses that eloquently evinced diligent labor and meticulous scrutiny. It is precisely at this juncture that we ascertain the fundamental truth. Even celestial restoration commences with the most mundane of substances. One might readily picture him pausing at the periphery of a modest hamlet, as dawn's radiant light pierced through the verdant, oleaceous orchards. His initial supplicants would not, at this nascent stage, gravitate towards him due to any celestial renown. Instead, they would approach because someone had keenly observed his dexterous touch and the serene manner in which he navigated their milieu, devoid of either censure or undue urgency. In the Hellenic antiquity, therapeutic practice originated not within grand marble temples, but rather in the bustling agorae and humble domiciles where affliction often lingered, patiently awaiting someone who possessed empathetic attentiveness. The unadorned satchel contained arcana that would appear remarkably rudimentary to contemporary perception. Within it lay an assortment of cupric scalpels, each meticulously crafted for distinct applications. The diminutive blade, scarcely larger than an infant's digit, proved ideal for extricating splinters or incising minor purulent swellings. An intermediate edge, keen as a zephyr, could precisely incise integument when reducing fractured osseous structures. The most substantial blade, possessing considerable heft in the hand, was reserved for grave operative procedures that many fellow practitioners recoiled from undertaking. Yet the cupric scalpels were merely the genesis of his therapeutic arsenal. Enveloped in pliable fabric, one found an array of osseous stylets, some rectilinear as shafts for suturing lacerations, others arcuated like crescent moons, designed for accessing challenging anatomies. Filament derived from ovine viscera provided ligatures that the organism could assimilate as recuperation advanced. These unassuming implements possessed no sorcery beyond the inherent dexterity of the digits that manipulated them and the precise discernment regarding their appropriate application. The villagers congregated gradually, attracted by narratives gleaned from itinerants. Here they heard was a nascent individual who had acquired his therapeutic expertise from the sagacious centaur Chiron, one who moreover bore the direct benediction of Apollo himself. Yet, what captivated their attention primarily was not his celestial provenance. It was, rather, the tender manner in which he genuflected beside an ailing infant, palpating her arterial rhythm with digits that appeared cognizant of precisely their diagnostic objective. One could readily envision Asclepius deploying his medicaments in that inaugural settlement, observed intently by inquisitive youngsters who peered from behind maternal garments. Ceramic vessels, arrayed with meticulous precision, contained desiccated botanicals in manifold assortments. Salix alba cortex, specifically for analgesia, a mellifluous substance for prophylaxis against infection, and papaver somniferum distillate to induce profound slumber when operative intervention was necessitated. Each pot was meticulously inscribed with ideograms intelligible solely to seasoned practitioners, a rudimentary apothecary that encapsulated aeons of empirical knowledge. Observe his ministration on his inaugural session as an autonomous practitioner. A venerable agriculturist presented himself, conspicuously protecting his sinister limb, hobbling so severely that his quotidian labors were rendered almost impracticable. Rather than precipitously proposing a miraculous remedy, Asclepius judiciously posed inquiries. When did the algia commence? Does the discomfort experience diurnal or nocturnal exacerbation? Could you precisely indicate the locus of your most profound unease? The subsequent diagnostic assessment would undoubtedly resonate with any contemporary physician. Asclepius meticulously palpated the agriculturist's limb with careful digits, assessing articular mobility and keenly observing the individual's countenance for any indicators of distress. He unearthed a chronic lesion that had failed to achieve complete resolution, engendering persistent phlogosis that was consistently exacerbated by quotidian exertions. The prescribed resolution was far from spectacular. A simple cataplasm of botanicals to diminish tumescence, targeted calisthenics to fortify auxiliary musculature, and pragmatic counsel regarding appropriate periods of repose. Yet, it was precisely at this juncture that his celestial provenance became manifest. As Asclepius meticulously compounded the botanical therapeutic, an extraordinary phenomenon occurred. The flora appeared remarkably amenable to his touch, yielding their inherent curative attributes with significantly greater alacrity than they would for mundane manipulation. The resulting concoction did not merely possess a medicinal aroma, It palpably conveyed an aura of profound optimism, instilling conviction in both practitioner and supplicant regarding the genuine prospect of alleviation. Renown of his abilities proliferated swiftly throughout the diminutive settlements, and by midday, a considerable queue of supplicants had formed outside the modest dwelling where Asclepius had established his dispensary. Each individual instance imparted novel insights into the pragmatic implementation of Chiron's comprehensive teachings. A matriarch presented her infant suffering from a tenacious tussis. He recommended the inhalation of vapor from decocted botanicals and demonstrated techniques for alleviating the child's respiratory distress. A juvenile with septic lesions sustained from arduous agricultural toil underwent meticulous debridement and received dressings saturated with honey, nature's own potent antimicrobial agent. In the realm of ancient healing, remedies often drew directly from the earth's bounty, exemplified by potent substances such as honey, revered as nature's own powerful antibiotic. One might justifiably ponder the arduous journey a nascent healer undertook to master the application of such formidable and potentially perilous instruments without inadvertently inflicting greater injury than relief. The profound secret to this mastery resided within the virtues of unwavering patience and scrupulous observation. Asclepius, with meticulous dedication, initiated his practical education by performing dissections and various procedures upon deceased animals. Through this methodical process, he painstakingly deciphered the intricate ways in which living tissue responded to different types of incisions, comprehended the delicate mechanics of bone repair, and gained an intimate understanding of blood flow dynamics and effective hemorrhage control. Each nascent technique was rigorously tested, critically evaluated, and painstakingly refined over countless repetitions before he ever contemplated its application to a living, breathing patient. As his profound medical understanding deepened and his clinical experience broadened, Asclepius's arsenal of healing implements underwent a significant evolution. He began to ingeniously craft and commission specialized instruments, each meticulously designed for distinct therapeutic interventions. Among these were slender bronze probes, fashioned to meticulously explore the depths of wounds without inflicting gratuitous additional trauma. Gracefully curved forceps, expertly shaped for the delicate extraction of foreign bodies embedded within lacerations, and diminutive yet formidable saws, reserved for those dire circumstances where the excision of severely damaged bone became an absolute imperative to salvage a threatened limb. Concurrently, his collection of medicinal herbs burgeoned in sophistication as he traversed diverse landscapes from one village to the next. He cultivated an exceptional acumen for discerning subtle regional variations in familiar botanical species, astutely discovering that the same plant might possess markedly different potencies influenced by localized soil compositions and prevailing climatic conditions. A meticulously maintained and detailed journal served as his invaluable compendium, meticulously documenting not merely which specific herbs proved efficacious for particular ailments, but also the optimal seasonal windows for their harvest, precise methods for their drying and long-term storage, and innovative combinations that unlocked novel healing synergies. However, arguably the most indispensable instrument in his burgeoning collection was not forged from gleaming bronze or sturdy iron. Rather, it was his extraordinary and cultivated capacity to genuinely listen. Ancient Greek medicine, in its profound wisdom, grasped a fundamental truth that contemporary healthcare systems occasionally tend to overlook. The true genesis of healing commences with an authentic and empathetic audition of what the patient earnestly endeavors to communicate. Asclepius assiduously honed the rare aptitude for discerning not merely overt physiological symptoms, but for comprehensively reading the entire individual. He grasped with remarkable clarity how pervasive emotions like fear and hope, along with the intricate web of family circumstances, profoundly influenced the trajectory and ultimate success of a patient's recovery. One serene autumn evening, as Asclepius meticulously arranged his diverse array of medicines under the flickering glow of a lamplight, a deeper philosophical epiphany regarding Chiron's profound teachings began to crystallize within his mind. He realized with striking clarity that the instruments themselves held less intrinsic significance than the sagacious knowledge of precisely when and precisely how to deploy them. A surgical blade, wielded by unskilled or imprudent hands, possessed the terrifying potential to create grievous wounds rather than to effectuate restoration. Similarly, potent herbs, if misapplied or administered inappropriately, could easily transform into virulent poisons instead of benevolent cures. The true essence of skill, he understood, resided not in the mere possession of powerful instruments, but in the painstaking development of the profound wisdom necessary to apply them judiciously and with utmost appropriateness. This profound realization fundamentally reoriented and transformed his entire methodological approach to the art of healing. Rather than impulsively reaching for his most impressive or dramatic tools, Asclepius consistently commenced his interventions with the most straightforward and least invasive measures. He frequently discovered that what initially presented as a highly complex medical conundrum often yielded to a remarkably uncomplicated solution. Enhanced nutritional intake, adequate periods of restorative rest, strategic reduction of psychological stress, or simply the profound reassurance derived from being genuinely heard and empathetically understood by a practitioner who demonstrably cared for one's overall well-being. The formidable surgical instruments, therefore, came to represent medicine's ultimate recourse, its last and most serious resort, rather than its immediate or preferred first response. Asclepius consequently cultivated an esteemed reputation for assiduously avoiding superfluous procedures, consistently advocating for and implementing conservative treatments as a primary strategy, and only reluctantly resorting to surgical intervention when it was deemed absolutely and unequivocally necessary. This prudent and patient-centric approach undoubtedly spared countless individuals from the additional trauma and potential complications associated with invasive interventions that, in many cases, might have inflicted more detriment than benefit. As the seasons gracefully transitioned and his extraordinary skills continued to mature and deepen, an increasing number of other healers and medical practitioners began to actively seek him out, driven by an earnest desire to assimilate his unique techniques and to gain insight into the sophisticated application of his renowned tools. Asclepius, with characteristic generosity, warmly welcomed these earnest students, possessing an innate understanding that the efficacy and reach of healing knowledge were profoundly amplified through communal sharing rather than through proprietary hoarding. He embarked upon a comprehensive pedagogical mission, instructing others not merely in the precise manipulation of specific medical instruments, but, more profoundly, in the art of cultivating a healer's discerning mindset. This involved the rigorous practice of meticulous observation, the critical questioning of ingrained assumptions, and the unwavering commitment to consider the entirety of the patient, their physical, emotional, and social dimensions, rather than fixating solely on isolated symptoms. As one traces Asclepius's journey from one village to another, witnessing his continuous refinement of both his practical tools and his diagnostic techniques, it becomes evident how this robust, hands-on empirical foundation meticulously prepared him for the more enigmatic and spiritual facets of healing that would define his future endeavors. Dreams and prophetic visions, sacred temple rituals, and profound spiritual cures, all seamlessly integrated with and built upon this solid bedrock of tangible, practical medical knowledge. The precise scalpel and the fervent prayer in his philosophy functioned synergistically, each augmenting the efficacy and profound impact of the other. The modest leather satchel that had once contained the entirety of his worldly possessions and rudimentary implements gradually burgeoned into a comprehensive and sophisticated medical workshop. This expansive facility, replete with specialized cases housing an array of intricate instruments, shelves laden with diverse medicines, and meticulously compiled books filled with astute clinical observations, effectively laid the foundational blueprint for what would become the very first medical school in the ancient world. Yet, at the very core of this impressive establishment, there remained those foundational, original tools. Bronze knives, maintained with impeccable sharpness through diligent daily use. Countless herb jars, refilled innumerable times with freshly harvested remedies. And delicate needles, worn smooth by the gentle, experienced hands that had meticulously stitched thousands of wounds. Perhaps the most truly remarkable characteristic distinguishing Asclepius's philosophy concerning healing tools was its unwavering and profound practicality. Despite his inherent divine heritage, which ostensibly granted him the power to invoke godly interventions to instantaneously cure any affliction, he consciously and deliberately chose to operate within the tangible limitations of mortal medicine. He committed himself to systematically improving these human methods, gradually, through painstaking observation, rigorous experimentation, and persistent, dedicated effort. This deliberate choice suggested something profoundly insightful about the intrinsic nature of authentic healing, that its most potent and effective manifestation occurs when it harmoniously honors both the cultivated skill and diligent labor of human endeavor, and the boundless compassion often attributed to the divine. The unassuming leather bag, though appearing modest to the scrutinizing gaze of modern practitioners, contained veritable treasures that encapsulated centuries of accumulated wisdom. Within its confines lay bronze knives, honed to such exquisite sharpness that they could precisely incise infected tissue without causing undue trauma to healthy flesh. Small, elegantly crafted clay pots carefully preserved powdered herbs, potent willow bark, utilized for alleviating pain, poppy seeds, employed to induce restorative sleep, and fragrant mint leaves, administered to soothe troubled stomachs. Strips of fine linen, meticulously washed and rewashed until they attained the silken softness of aged cloth, lay ready to be fashioned into sterile bandages. A delicate set of bronze needles, as fine and precise as individual hairs, possessed the remarkable capacity to meticulously close wounds that might otherwise never have healed properly, preventing infection and promoting restoration. One might indeed marvel at how such seemingly simple instruments could conceivably facilitate what appeared to be miraculous recoveries. Yet, Asclepius grasped a fundamental truth that contemporary medical practice, at times, inadvertently disregards. Genuine healing transcends mere instrumentation. It is profoundly actualized through the skilled and compassionate hands that wield them. Consider his examination of an early patient, an aged farmer whose debilitating arthritis rendered every movement a torment. Asclepius did not immediately reach for his prepared medicines. Instead, with profound empathy, he posed questions that no one had previously bothered to ask. "When does the pain feel most intense?" he gently inquired, seating himself beside the man on a weathered wooden bench, smoothed by years of use. "What actions or conditions seem to ameliorate it? Conversely, what exacerbates its severity?" His hands, with a touch so remarkably gentle, it astonished both the suffering patient and any watchful observers, meticulously explored the swollen, inflamed joints. This was far more than a mere diagnostic assessment. It was an intimate, non-verbal dialogue unfolding between the healer and the afflicted body, conducted entirely in the eloquent language of careful, undivided attention. From the depths of his bag, Asclepius carefully extracted a small clay pot containing an oil meticulously infused with herbs, prepared according to the ancient methods taught to him by Chiron. The intricate process of its creation spanned weeks. The precise collection of specific plants at their optimal stage of growth, their careful drying under controlled conditions, and their deliberate combination with oil pressed from the finest olives. Yet, as he gently massaged this potent preparation into the farmer's aching joints, an unmistakable expression of immediate relief softened the old man's weathered face. "The gods have surely blessed your hands, young one," the farmer murmured with genuine gratitude. But Asclepius humbly shook his head. "Oh, the true blessing resides within the plants themselves," he replied with characteristic modesty. "I have merely learned to attentively listen to the wisdom they endeavor to impart to us." This profound humility would ultimately become his defining characteristic, for he consistently refrained from claiming divine empowerment for accomplishments that were, in truth, the direct result of astute observation and diligent, patient study. As authentic accounts of his exceptional skills disseminated widely, Asclepius began to attract an increasing number of intricate and challenging cases. A desperate woman, for instance, brought her child, whose small body was consumed by a relentless fever that had persisted for many days. The local wise women, despite their earnest efforts, had exhausted their traditional remedies without success, and sheer desperation compelled the mother to seek succor from this enigmatic young stranger who carried the promise of healing within a simple leather satchel. Asclepius knelt with compassionate solemnity beside the child's bed. His keen eyes note the rapid, shallow breathing, the flushed, feverish skin, and the subtle tremors that racked the small body despite its intense heat. From his diverse collection of implements, he judiciously selected not a potent medicine, but a piece of impeccably clean linen, thoroughly soaked in cool, refreshing water. Sometimes, he patiently elucidated to the anxious mother, the body simply requires assistance in regulating its own temperature before it can effectively initiate its healing processes. He then demonstrated precisely how to position the cool cloths upon the child's forehead and wrists, areas where major blood vessels coursed close to the skin's surface. From another small pot, He meticulously measured precise quantities of dried herbs, elderflower, intended to induce a beneficial sweat, chamomile, to gently calm the child's restless spirit, and a delicate touch of honey, added to render the potentially bitter tea palatable to young lips. The entire preparation of this medicine transcended mere pharmacology, evolving into a calming ritual that soothed the mother's frayed nerves as profoundly as it aided the ailing child. Healing, you see, Asclepius sagely observed as they collectively awaited the fever's abatement, is as much a product of hope as it is of herbs. When we empower individuals by showing them how they can actively contribute to the healing process, we effectively restore their sense of agency over sickness. The mother, witnessing her child's breathing gradually decelerate and deepen into a more peaceful rhythm, comprehended for the very first time that she was not utterly helpless in the face of illness. However, it is crucial to acknowledge that not all of Asclepius's tools were designed for gentle intervention. When a young shepherd arrived, bearing a deep, grievous wound in his leg, a laceration inflicted by a wolf's fangs, and already exhibiting alarming signs of infection, a more decisive and dramatic intervention became absolutely imperative. The severity of the injury necessitated a level of surgical dexterity and profound anatomical knowledge that rigorously tested every lesson Chiron had imparted concerning the body's intricate, hidden architecture. From his capacious bag, Asclepius produced a specialized set of bronze instruments that gleamed with an almost ethereal brilliance, like fragments of captured sunlight. The knives themselves were exquisite artifacts, their blades honed to an unparalleled perfection, and their handles meticulously wrapped in supple leather to ensure an unyielding and secure grip. Yet Asclepius handled these formidable tools with a reverence befitting instruments that possessed the dual capacity to either profoundly heal or to irrevocably harm, depending entirely upon the consummate skill and ethical judgment of their wielder. On the skill of their user. He meticulously cleansed the shepherd's injury with a splash of wine, patiently elucidating that specific alcoholic essences possess the remarkable to combat the unseen microbial adversaries responsible for initiating infection. The young man clenched his jaw, enduring the discomfort as Asclepius delicately probed the compromised tissues, expertly excising grime and lacerated flesh with a precision reminiscent of a master sculptor meticulously shaping a block of pristine marble. A momentary pang now averts a more profound agony later, the sagacious healer articulated. Occasionally, genuine compassion necessitates inflicting transient discomfort to avert enduring detriment. As the weeks inexorably unfolded, Asclepius's burgeoning renown expanded, not merely for his extraordinary curative faculties, but equally for his magnanimous inclination to impart his profound knowledge to others. He diligently instructed local women in the intricate art of concocting herbal concoctions, designed to alleviate prevalent maladies. He meticulously educated young men on the proper methodologies for setting fractured bones and meticulously sanitizing wounds. His unassuming satchel of instruments progressively transmuted into a peripatetic academy of medical enlightenment. The slender bronze needles were then brought into play, as Asclepius meticulously closed the gaping wound with sutures so exquisitely neat they appeared more ornamental than practical. Each individual stitch was positioned with an almost mathematical exactitude, drawing the ragged edges of the torn flesh together in flawless alignment. The shepherd observed in stunned disbelief as his grievous injury metamorphosed into a clean, linear demarcation that promised swift recuperation rather than festering decay. How do you discern precisely where to incise and where to suture? The young man inquired, prompting Asclepius to momentarily suspend his intricate work, to contemplate the profound query. Every corporeal form narrates its unique chronicle. He responded with thoughtful deliberation. The sanguine flow indicates its desired trajectory. The muscular fibers reveal their preferred orientation. My role is simply to attentively heed their unspoken language and facilitate their remembrance of inherent wholeness. Nevertheless, instruments, however sophisticated, were only as efficacious as the sagacity that directed their application. Asclepius consistently impressed upon his acolytes the deeper philosophical tenets underpinning the practical methodologies. These implements merely extend the reach of our physical hands, he expounded during an impromptu tutorial conducted beneath the dappled shade trees of a bustling market square. Yet, they possess no capacity to amplify the breadth of our hearts. Compassion, above all, is the indispensable implement that imbues all others with true efficacy. Why do you so freely disseminate your closely guarded arcana? He queried a seasoned physician from the nearest urban center, betraying a hint of professional envy concerning the youthful healer's escalating celebrity. Do you not harbor apprehension regarding potential rivalry? Asclepius appeared genuinely perplexed by the inquiry. Human suffering is far too pervasive for any singular healer to adequately address, he stated with disarming simplicity. The greater the number of hands skilled in the art of healing, the less anguish will afflict the world. This profound humanitarian philosophy began to fundamentally reconfigure the very paradigm of medicine itself. Rather than jealously safeguarding knowledge as a precious hoard, Asclepius pioneered the establishment of the inaugural consortium of healers who openly exchanged methodologies and groundbreaking discoveries. He meticulously demonstrated to them the fabrication of their own specialized instruments, the optimal locations for sourcing superior materials, and the specific techniques best suited for various afflictions. His modest leather satchel thus evolved into a foundational archetype, replicated extensively throughout the Hellenic world. As our investigative journey through the medical innovations of Asclepius approaches its conclusion, one is compelled to acknowledge the profoundly revolutionary nature of his therapeutic paradigm. In an epoch where curative practices were frequently perceived as either mystical enchantment or direct divine intervention, he steadfastly championed an empirical understanding of physiological function. He forged the initial systematic approach to medical science, established the nascent academies of medical thought, and cultivated the premier network of professionally trained healers. He vividly exemplified this profound truth when an impoverished beggar, afflicted with a debilitating illness, arrived seeking succor that every other healer had steadfastly refused to provide. The man's condition was alarmingly advanced and excruciatingly painful, his emaciated body bearing the indelible imprints of protracted neglect. Conventional physicians would undoubtedly have dismissed him as beyond remedy. Yet Asclepius reached into his diagnostic satchel with the identical meticulous attention he habitually bestowed upon his most affluent clientele. The instruments he employed were indistinguishable. The same bronze scalpels, the very same herbal formulations, the identical linen dressings. However, the profound empathy with which he administered them fundamentally transformed both the therapeutic intervention and the suffering patient. Even in instances where a complete cure eludes us, he imparted to his attentive students, we are invariably capable of offering solace. Occasionally, that very solace becomes the bedrock for a healing process that initially appeared utterly unattainable. But perhaps most significantly, he never once allowed himself to forget that the most exquisitely refined instrument contained within his therapeutic satchel was kindness itself. Every gleaming bronze scalpel was meticulously guided by an innate compassion. Every potent herbal remedy was lovingly prepared, and every soft bandage was applied with an unwavering sense of hope. His instruments were inherently simple, yet the profound heart that directed their application possessed an infinite capacity for profound care. And so we bid adieu to Asclepius, diligently engaged in his healing endeavors within that unassuming village, his well-worn leather satchel lying open beside him as he assiduously attended to an unceasing procession of patients. The indispensable tools of healing radiated outwards from his gentle, skilled hands, much like concentric ripples expanding across a placid body of water, conveying much-needed alleviation to remote corners of the world where suffering had once persisted without response. Tonight, find solace in the comforting awareness that, somewhere, someone invariably possesses the essential instruments to assuage pain and rekindle the flame of hope. However, the art of healing in the ancient world encompassed more than mere physical remedies. As Asclepius's reputation steadily ascended, individuals began to approach him with afflictions that botanical preparations alone could not address. It was at this juncture that his divine lineage manifested most conspicuously, not through ostentatious miracles, but rather through his extraordinary aptitude for comprehending the enigmatic nexus between dreams and the process of healing, a connection that would subsequently form the very bedrock of temple medicine. Envision yourself accompanying Asclepius as he pays a visit to a woman who had been tormented by persistent, debilitating headaches for many months. No quantity of willow bark infusion or soothing compresses had afforded her any measure of relief. One could discern the profound despair etched into her eyes as she recounted nights spent restlessly pacing her modest dwelling, utterly incapable of finding repose. Her husband observed her plight with a pervasive sense of helplessness, acutely aware that his wife's unremitting pain had become the inescapable epicenter around which their entire familial existence now revolved. "Kindly recount your dreams to me," Asclepius uttered softly, settling beside her bed with the hallmark patient attentiveness that had become his distinguishing characteristic. The request momentarily startled her. What conceivable relevance could dreams possess to the incessant throbbing in her temples? Yet, an inexplicable quality in his gentle demeanor fostered a sense of candidness, and she commenced to articulate the peculiar nocturnal visions that visited her during the fleeting moments when sheer exhaustion finally claimed her. She vividly recounted dreaming of a cavernous, darkened grotto filled with the tumultuous roar of rushing water, where she stood, her voice echoing as she desperately called for her lost offspring. The sound reverberated interminably, bouncing off the unyielding stone walls that appeared to constrict with each passing moment. She invariably awoke from this harrowing dream with her headache significantly intensified, her heart palpitating with an unnamed grief. "But I have no lost child," she confided to Asclepius. "My children are fully grown and thriving. Why does this dream persistently torment me?" Asclepius listened with the meticulous concentration he had once dedicated to Chiron's sagacious lessons concerning the interpretation of the forest's subtle indicators. He intuitively grasped that dreams frequently communicated through symbolic representation, unveiling profound truths that the conscious intellect was incapable of directly confronting. Through a series of gentle, probing inquiries, he ascertained the occurrence of a miscarriage she had endured years prior. A profound loss she had suppressed so deeply that her conscious mind seldom acknowledged its existence. Your physical form retains the memory of what your heart endeavors to obliterate, he tenderly elucidated. Occasionally, pain traverses subterranean pathways, akin to water flowing through hidden caverns, surfacing in locales we least anticipate. He prescribed not merely herbal remedies for her debilitating headaches, but also a specific ritual of mourning for the unborn child who had never drawn a single breath. Grant your sorrow a designated outlet, he thoughtfully suggested, and it may cease to generate pain in other areas. This insightful pattern crystallized as Asclepius progressively refined his understanding of healing through the interpretation of dreams. He cultivated the ability to decipher the symbolic lexicon of the somnolent mind, interpreting visions that unveiled concealed origins of illness. A man who frequently dreamed of succumbing to drowning subsequently discovered his profound fear of relinquishing control. A woman who repeatedly dreamed of being relentlessly pursued came to comprehend her deep-seated anxiety concerning an unhappy marital union. Physical manifestations of illness frequently dissipated once underlying emotional traumas finally received the necessary therapeutic attention. One might justifiably ponder how Asclepius pioneered this distinctly unconventional approach to medical practice. The answer resided partly in his divine provenance. Deities frequently communicated through dreams and prophetic visions. However, the primary impetus lay in his unwavering willingness to attentively heed aspects of the human experience that other healers habitually disregarded. He astutely observed that patients frequently alluded to their nocturnal visions, and he began to accord these nocturnal narratives the same serious consideration he devoted to their palpable physical symptoms. Word of the young healer who achieved cures through dream interpretation rapidly circulated, and pilgrims commenced undertaking arduous journeys specifically to solicit his unparalleled assistance. Yet, Asclepius did not merely analyze their visions. He meticulously instructed them on how to actively invite healing dreams themselves. Sleep serves as a profound portal, he explained to a gathering of patients assembled within a sacred grove of ancient trees. When we approach it with due reverence, we are capable of traversing into realms where genuine healing patiently awaits. He meticulously demonstrated the preparations necessary for therapeutic slumbers. Ritualistic bathing in cool, pristine spring water to purify both the corporeal form and the spiritual essence, fasting to quiet the incessant mental chatter, and the burning of specific aromatic herbs whose fragrant smoke was believed to carry supplications to the benevolent gods of healing. The preparatory process itself became as intrinsically significant as the dreams that followed, creating a sanctified space for the sacred to permeate the fabric of ordinary existence. Visualize the evocative scene as Asclepius meticulously arranged a sleeping chamber for a merchant whose chronic gastric ailments had stubbornly resisted all conventional therapeutic interventions. The room was austere yet meticulously prepared. Immaculately clean linen draped upon a comfortable sleeping pallet. walls adorned with serene depictions of tranquil landscapes, a modest altar carefully positioned, bearing offerings dedicated to the healing deities. Soft, melodic strains of music wafted gently from adjacent chambers where other patients reposed in their own restorative sleep. The visions you experience tonight may illuminate the precise pathway to holistic wellness, Asclepius gently informed the merchant as the evening shadows began to lengthen. Do not endeavor to coerce the visions. Permit them to emerge organically, much like birds returning to their customary roost. Whatever imagery you behold, commit it diligently to memory. Even seemingly perplexing dreams frequently harbor the nascent seeds of profound understanding. He thoughtfully placed a small parchment scroll and a slender writing reed beside the bed, keenly aware that dreams possess a fleeting quality and rapidly dissipate unless promptly transcribed into enduring words. The merchant once recounted a vivid dream of an opulent banquet, where he found himself seated in solitude before an abundance of sumptuous dishes, yet utterly incapable of partaking. His mouth, he explained, had been meticulously sewn shut with a glistening golden thread, which, with each futile attempt to sever it, only grew more substantial and restrictive. Upon awakening and conveying this unsettling nocturnal vision to Asclepius, the sagacious healer immediately recognized its profound significance. Your abdominal discomfort, Asclepius sagaciously interpreted, stems from your unuttered sentiments. What crucial message have you suppressed? Through a series of delicate and probing conversations, they unearthed the merchant's long, festering indignation towards a former business associate who had defrauded him years prior. This unarticulated wrath, it became clear, had been metaphorically, yet profoundly, corroding his digestive system, manifesting tangible physical symptoms born of profound emotional toxicity. Asclepius, therefore, prescribed not merely palliative herbal remedies for the stomach, but rather a structured, ritualized confrontation, empowering the merchant to finally articulate his long-held truth. True healing, the healer sagely remarked, often demands as much fortitude as it does medication. Your dream vividly illustrated the golden thread, seemingly precious yet inherently constricting. While speaking one's truth may exact a considerable cost, the price of protracted silence is invariably far greater. As Asclepius's renown for his unique approach to dream-based healing expanded, he meticulously observed recurrent motifs within his patients' nocturnal reveries. Specific symbols consistently emerged. Serpentine figures frequently embodied concepts of profound metamorphosis. Flowing water invariably signified emotional purification. Cavernous spaces often indicated concealed wisdom, and stately trees typically suggested gradual growth and enduring recovery. He embarked upon a rigorous practice of documenting these recurring dream symbols and their corresponding interpretations, thereby establishing the pioneering systematic framework for therapeutic dream analysis. However, the most awe-inspiring and enigmatic dreams were those that appeared to originate directly from the Olympian deities themselves. Remarkably, patients frequently reported experiencing visions of Asclepius himself during their sleep, wherein he would impart precise remedies or miraculously effect cures that seamlessly translated into their waking existence. These divinely imbued dreams both perplexed and deeply humbled the healer, who grappled with the inexplicable phenomenon of his image manifesting to individuals, while he peacefully slumbered in his own dwelling, often many miles distant. Perhaps the very act of healing generates its own pervasive presence, he pondered aloud to a fellow practitioner who had journeyed to study his innovative methodologies. When we commit ourselves entirely to alleviating suffering, our essence transcends our mere physical forms. Our dedicated intention to heal assumes an autonomous vitality, reaching out to those who are most in need of our aid. This mystical dimension of his work simultaneously captivated and disquieted him, prompting a profound existential inquiry. Where did the boundaries of human proficiency dissolve and divine intervention commence? The elusive answer materialized within his own dreams, which had progressively intensified in vividness as his exceptional healing capabilities flourished. He envisioned himself standing within an immense, ethereal library, its countless scrolls containing the accumulated medical knowledge of every culture and epoch. A figure he instantly recognized as his divine father, Apollo, materialized, yet not in his customary celestial splendor. Instead, Apollo appeared as an elderly, benevolent physician, his hands visibly marked by the calluses of a lifetime dedicated to serving humanity. "You are troubled by the origin of your unique gifts," the dream Apollo gently conveyed. "But healing itself is the ultimate source. Each instance you alleviate pain, you draw from the same boundless reservoir that nourishes all compassion. The gods do not possess healing. Rather, we serve it, precisely as you do." This profound dream finally brought Asclepius the inner tranquility he had long sought, granting him the ultimate realization that his extraordinary abilities emanated from a source far grander than either divine omnipotence or mere mortal aptitude. Empowered by this profound epiphany, Asclepius subsequently began instructing other healers in the intricate art of engaging with their patients' dreams. He meticulously demonstrated how to cultivate optimal conditions for therapeutic sleep, how to judiciously interpret prevalent dream symbols, and how to guide patients in discerning the intrinsic connections between their nocturnal visions and their physical ailments. Dreams, he elucidated, are intimate missives penned by the physical body to the innermost soul. Our paramount duty is to assist individuals in deciphering their own personal correspondence. This transformative practice gradually proliferated throughout the Hellenic world, eventually attaining formal institutionalization within the revered temples that would forever bear Asclepius's distinguished name. Pilgrims would undertake arduous journeys spanning hundreds of miles to repose in these consecrated chambers, where healing dreams were reputedly bestowed upon those who approached with meticulous preparation and an earnest, profound need. Yet the foundational bedrock for all these widespread practices lay firmly in those formative years, when a nascent healer first truly learned to attune himself to the subtle, eloquent language of sleep. As one contemplates the conclusion of this exploration into the ancient art of dream healing, a natural inclination might arise to ponder the significance of one's own dreams and the latent messages they might impart. Asclepius profoundly ascertained that the subconscious mind, during slumber, frequently perceived remedies that eluded conscious thought, that restorative repose itself possessed potent medicinal qualities, and that genuine healing occasionally necessitated venturing into profound internal darkness to ultimately discover illuminating clarity. Perhaps tonight, as one prepares for sleep, the gentle wisdom of Asclepius, that dreams serve as profound doorways, will resonate. One might then choose to pay closer attention to the ephemeral images that grace one's rest, seeking the symbols and narratives that one's own intrinsic healer might be endeavoring to communicate. And should the notion of healing dreams seem overly esoteric for contemporary sensibilities, it is pertinent to recall that modern scientific inquiry has now unequivocally validated what Asclepius intuitively grasped millennia ago. Sleep is the crucial period when the body diligently repairs itself, when the mind meticulously processes emotional traumas, and when the enigmatic interrelationship between physical and spiritual well-being unveils itself with unparalleled clarity. As tidings of Asclepius's remarkable curative talents diffused across the expanse of Greece, a truly extraordinary phenomenon began to unfold. Communities initiated the construction of dedicated sanctuaries devoted to the healing arts, sacred precincts where the pragmatic medical knowledge assimilated from Chiron harmoniously converged with the profound spiritual dimensions of recovery. These were not conceived as grandiose monuments to human vanity, but rather as meticulously crafted spaces where the crucible of suffering could be transmuted into the radiant promise of hope. One might vividly imagine standing on a verdant hillside, gazing down upon the nascent construction of the inaugural Asclepieion, as these venerable healing temples eventually came to be known. The selection of its location was far from arbitrary. It was strategically situated adjacent to a natural spring, whose waters had been revered as sacred for countless generations, encircled by lush groves of trees that offered both soothing shade and a bounty of medicinal flora. The visionary architects intuitively grasped that the most profound healing transpired within environments where nature herself seemed to softly murmur assurances of revitalization. One could observe the scrupulous deliberation that informed every single facet of the sanctuary's architectural schema. The principal temple ascended in graceful, flowing terraces that meticulously conformed to the hillside's inherent undulations, thereby fashioning spaces that conveyed an organic integration rather than an artificial imposition. Expansive porticos afforded welcome refuge from the intense sun and inclement rain, concurrently facilitating the unimpeded circulation of refreshing air. Gardens were cultivated not solely for their aesthetic allure, but for their inherent therapeutic attributes: fragrant lavender to assuage anxiety, pungent mint to alleviate digestive complaints, and delicate roses whose exquisite perfume uplifted the spirit. The sleeping chambers, in particular, received meticulous attention, their designs meticulously guided by the principles Asclepius had discerned over years of dedicated engagement with healing dreams. Each room was oriented towards the east to capture the earliest rays of dawn, thereby assisting patients in awakening naturally, rather than being abruptly roused from their restorative slumber. The walls were adorned with serene murals depicting tranquil landscapes, verdant meadows where sheep grazed placidly, idyllic seashores where gentle waves caressed sandy beaches, and sun-dappled forest clearings where filtered light permeated ancient canopies. Yet perhaps the most groundbreaking innovation lay in the circular edifice positioned at the very core of the sanctuary. Conceived for what might now be termed group therapy, this space served as a gathering point where patients could openly share their personal narratives, their deeply held fears, and their fervent aspirations for recovery. Asclepius possessed an intuitive understanding of a truth that modern medicine is only now rediscovering: that isolation frequently exacerbates illness, whereas the embrace of community can exert a profoundly therapeutic influence. Shared suffering is suffering halved, he elucidated to the architects as they meticulously planned the circular chamber's acoustic properties. The domed ceiling was ingeniously engineered to convey even the softest whispered words clearly to every listener, thereby fostering an intimate atmosphere within a space capacious enough to accommodate dozens of individuals. When patients collectively recognized they were not solitary in their affliction, the process of healing commenced even before any medicinal intervention was applied. The initial wave of pilgrims commenced their arrival even while construction remained underway, drawn by compelling reports of extraordinary cures and exceptionally compassionate care. They journeyed, bearing their ailments like burdensome packages, some proceeding with excruciating steps, others transported on litters by devoted family members. What was most striking about these early patients was their complex emotional landscape, a delicate fusion of fervent hope and ingrained skepticism. Many had previously consulted numerous healers, only to be disappointed by promises that ultimately proved hollow. Yet, an undeniable distinction permeated the Asclepion from the very moment they passed through its gates. Perhaps it was the gentle efficiency of the priests and attendants who greeted each newcomer with solicitous inquiries about their comfort rather than immediate demands for remuneration. Perhaps it was the sanctuary's pervasive atmosphere of tranquil purpose, where every element, from the strategic placement of benches to the deliberate selection of plants, seemed meticulously calibrated to foster peace rather than merely flaunt affluence. Asclepius himself moved through the active construction site with the purposeful grace of a master conductor orchestrating a complex symphony. He engaged in detailed consultations with stonemasons regarding the thermal characteristics of various marbles, discerning which types remained cool during the summer heat and which effectively retained warmth during the winter chill. He deliberated with gardeners about the seasonal cycles of medicinal plants, ensuring a continuous supply of fresh herbs throughout the entire year. No detail was deemed too insignificant for his discerning attention if it held the potential to impact a patient's holistic well-being. One might naturally ponder the dissemination of information concerning these sacred healing havens in an era devoid of contemporary communication technologies. The ingenious solution resided within the individuals who experienced the cures themselves. Upon returning to their native settlements, these grateful patients effectively transformed into fervent proponents of Asclepian therapeutic practices. For instance, a prosperous merchant, once debilitated by persistent joint afflictions, recounted to all acquaintances the extraordinary efficacy of the treatments he received during a month-long stay at the sanctuary. Similarly, a devoted mother, whose offspring had triumphantly overcome a debilitating wasting sickness, zealously coordinated expeditions for other families grappling with comparable medical emergencies. Such compelling narratives of recovery forged an intricate web of unsolicited endorsements, extending its reach throughout the Hellenic world and even further afield. Consequently, petitions soon emanated from distant urban centers, earnestly soliciting assistance in establishing their own dedicated Asclepia. Asclepius, in his wisdom, responded by meticulously preparing cadres of consecrated priests and skilled practitioners, empowering them to propagate his distinctive methodologies to novel locales. Nevertheless, he steadfastly maintained that each new sanctuary must be meticulously tailored to its specific geographical context and the unique requirements of its surrounding populace. The art of healing cannot be replicated en masse, much like the production of earthenware vessels. he sagely imparted to a contingent from Athens, who had expressed a desire to erect an identical replica of the original sacred site. Every community is obligated to discern its unique trajectory towards optimal health, just as every individual requiring care necessitates a personalized therapeutic regimen. This profound philosophical stance guaranteed that while all Asclepiae adhered to a foundational set of guiding tenets, each organically cultivated its own distinct identity and particular areas of medical excellence. The venerable sanctuary situated in the maritime region of Epidaurus earned widespread renown for its exceptional proficiency in addressing respiratory complaints, skillfully leveraging the salubrious sea breezes that appeared to effortlessly alleviate constricted pulmonary passages. In contrast, the elevated mountain temple at Titharia cultivated a specialized expertise in mending injuries and setting fractured bones, ingeniously employing the crisp, unadulterated atmosphere and the therapeutic mineral springs. Characteristic of higher altitudes to accelerate the recuperative process. Meanwhile, the metropolitan sanctuary nestled within Athens directed its primary focus toward maladies of the intellect and the soul, ministering to a populace frequently burdened by the inherent pressures of urban existence and the tumultuous currents of political instability. Yet, irrespective of their distinct individual attributes and specialized concentrations, all Asclepiae uniformly embodied several fundamental characteristics that profoundly mirrored their esteemed founder's comprehensive comprehension of the authentic mechanisms through which true healing manifested. These sacred establishments were invariably erected upon aesthetically pleasing locales, inherently instilling a sense of optimism merely through their inherent charm as agreeable environments for sojourning. They masterfully integrated pragmatic medical interventions with profound spiritual rejuvenation, acknowledging the intrinsic connection wherein physical ailments and spiritual distress frequently coexisted, thus necessitating a unified approach to recovery for both body and psyche. Crucially, their operational framework was predicated upon the revolutionary tenet that therapeutic care ought to be accessible to every individual without prejudice based on their societal standing or financial wherewithal. Affluent patients were received with open arms, and their magnanimous benefactions played an instrumental role in sustaining the sanctuary's operations. Concurrently, indigent supplicants were afforded an identical standard of compassionate attention. This profoundly egalitarian methodology bewildered certain onlookers and provoked indignation among others who customarily reaped gains from the prevailing class stratifications within the medical profession. Does a fractured limb discern whether its possessor is of noble lineage or a commoner? Asclepius retorted to those detractors who dared to challenge his progressive directives. Does a febrile condition acknowledge distinctions in social hierarchy? Sickness, in its indiscriminate nature, humbles all humanity uniformly, and consequently, healing must be equally attainable for everyone. This foundational philosophy subsequently emerged as one of his most enduring legacies to the realm of healthcare. The profound realization that medical attention constitutes a fundamental human requirement, rather than an exclusive perquisite reserved for the affluent elite. With the progressive expansion of the Asclepiae network, these institutions gradually assumed responsibilities extending far beyond the mere restoration of individual well-being. They evolved into pivotal hubs for medical instruction, functioning as venues where therapeutic methodologies were exchanged, meticulously analyzed, and systematically enhanced. These centers regularly convened assemblies where practitioners from diverse geographical locales could deliberate on their findings, contrast their observations, and mutually benefit from their collective clinical experiences. Furthermore, they diligently curated extensive libraries of ancient medical treatises and comprehensive archives of botanical pharmacopoeia, thereby safeguarding invaluable healing wisdom for the edification of succeeding generations. Concurrently, the sanctuaries commenced exerting a profound influence upon the wider cultural perception of health and the etiology of illness. Prior to the advent of Asclepius's teachings, maladies were frequently interpreted as divine retribution or an inescapable decree of destiny. The Asclepiae, however, convincingly illustrated that a multitude of afflictions were indeed amenable to prevention through judicious dietary practices, regular physical activity, and sagacious lifestyle decisions. They cogently advocated the principle that the proactive preservation of health held equivalent importance to the curative eradication of disease, thereby pioneering concepts of prophylactic medicine that struck ancient sensibilities as remarkably groundbreaking. One might readily visualize the quotidian existence within a fully developed Asclepiaeon. It was characterized by a serene yet purposeful hum of activity, typical of environments where significant endeavors transpired without undue theatricality or urgency. The advent of dawn heralded the resonant chimes of temple bells, summoning patients to participate in morning devotional rites and prescribed therapeutic physical regimens. The subsequent hours of the day progressed through meticulously scheduled treatments, shared repasts thoughtfully composed to bolster recuperation, instructive sessions where individuals acquired proficiency in self-care, and convivial evening assemblies where personal narratives were exchanged and interpersonal bonds were forged. The architectural structures themselves appeared to intrinsically manifest the very essence of the healing ethos. Their designs adhered to precise mathematical proportions, engendering an understated yet profound sense of equilibrium. Natural light, filtered through strategically placed windows and overhead apertures, poured inward, casting dynamic patterns that gradually transmuted with the sun's trajectory across the sky. Water meandered gracefully through intricate channels and decorative fountains, offering both tangible utilitarian advantages and the tranquilizing auditory accompaniment that served to assuage perturbed spirits. As the comprehensive examination of the Asclepiae approaches its conclusion, observers might discern the remarkable extent to which these venerable healing temples foreshadowed numerous characteristics inherent in contemporary hospitals and advanced treatment facilities. Their architects and practitioners intuitively grasped the critical significance of adequate air circulation, abundant natural illumination, and serene, tranquil surroundings. They acutely appreciated the inherent merit in synergizing conventional medical interventions with robust emotional solace. Moreover, they were trailblazers in the harmonious integration of physical and spiritual restoration, a comprehensive approach that modern holistic medicine is actively re-exploring in the present day. Yet, arguably their most profound and enduring innovation was the straightforward yet potent realization that genuine healing flourishes optimally within supportive communities of care, environments where human suffering is invariably confronted with both professional expertise and profound empathy, and where the fragile tendrils of hope are assiduously cultivated alongside the body's innate aptitude for recuperation. As one contemplates the day's end, one might envision traversing the hallowed grounds of such an ancient sanctuary, absorbing the profound tranquility that emanates from the awareness that, somewhere, dedicated hands are perpetually engaged in assuaging distress and reinstating integrity to lives that have been fragmented. One might reasonably inquire how an animal predominantly regarded with apprehension by the majority of humanity subsequently became the emblematic representation of the healing disciplines. The intrinsic association between Asclepius and serpents unveils a profound insight into the Hellenic perception of medicine as an endeavor necessitating a direct confrontation with our deepest anxieties, including the inescapable reality of human transience and the discovery of profound enlightenment within unforeseen contexts. Let us envision Asclepius in his formative years, still diligently assimilating the more recondite intricacies of therapeutic knowledge, extending beyond the foundational wisdom imparted to him by the centaur Chiron within the sylvan depths. He has been summoned to minister to a juvenile gravely afflicted by the bite of a venomous ophidian, and notwithstanding his burgeoning renown, this particular predicament instills in him a palpable dread. The envenomation had transpired many hours prior, and the tender physique of the infant already exhibited unmistakable manifestations of the toxin's lethal progression. Distended integument, arduous respiration, and a pallid facial hue that eloquently bespoke a vital essence slowly receding. The distressed family, in their agonizing plight, had exhausted every available recourse within their understanding. They had meticulously applied topical remedies prescribed by the sagacious local women, fervently offered supplications at every hallowed sanctuary within their hamlet, and even sought counsel from a revered oracle, whose pronouncement indicated that only a celestial intervention could possibly preserve their daughter's life. As they tenderly conveyed the afflicted child into Asclepius's presence, their remaining vestige of hope was so tenuous, so exquisitely delicate, that it appeared poised to disintegrate at the mere utterance of an unpropitious word. However, instead of succumbing to a debilitating sense of despondency, Asclepius experienced an unlooked-for sensation, an intense intellectual fascination concerning the very creature responsible for precipitating this grave emergency. Kindly indicate the precise spot where the serpent inflicted its bite, he courteously requested. In response, the child's father guided him to a craggy promontory where his daughter had been engaged in collecting wild fruits. Although the ophidian had long since departed, Asclepius meticulously scrutinized the immediate vicinity, diligently observing the particular botanical species present, the proximity of any aqueous sources, and the exact coordinates where the unfortunate encounter had transpired. What specific species of serpent was involved? He inquired further. The paternal account corroborated Asclepius's initial hypothesis. It was a variety renowned for its formidable toxicity, yet simultaneously, according to venerable folklore, credited with possessing distinct therapeutic attributes. This inherent paradox frequently perplexed numerous contemporary practitioners. Nevertheless, Asclepius had long contemplated the subtle demarcation between deleterious toxins and beneficial medicaments. Recalling Chiron's profound instruction that the precise quantity administered frequently dictated whether a given substance would inflict injury or bestow convalescence. During that nocturnal period, as he maintained a watchful vigil beside the fever-stricken child, Asclepius experienced one of the remarkably vivid dreams that had become progressively frequent as his inherent therapeutic faculties matured. Within this profound vision, he beheld a magnificent serpent intricately coiled about the venerable trunk of an ancient arborescent entity. The creature's gaze radiated sagacity rather than malevolence, and when it articulated, its voice resonated with the accumulated erudition of countless epochs. "You harbor apprehension toward that which you fail to comprehend," the chthonic dream serpent imparted to him. "Yet I am not your adversary. I embody the very essence of metamorphosis. I am the potent energy that divests itself of antiquated integument to unveil nascent vitality. I am the compelling force capable of both inflicting demise and bestowing restoration, contingent upon the manner of my deployment. Absorb my lessons, and you shall decipher enigmas that elude the grasp of other practitioners." Upon Asclepius's awakening, a miraculous transformation had occurred. The child's fever had abated, her respiration had stabilized, and a healthy flush was gradually reappearing on her once ashen cheeks. The immediate peril had receded, yet the profound import of the nocturnal vision persistently echoed within his consciousness. Throughout the subsequent weeks, he embarked upon an intensive study of serpents, dedicating the same meticulous scrutiny he had previously applied to the investigation of therapeutic botanicals. He unearthed the astonishing revelation that ophidians themselves possessed extraordinary inherent regenerative capacities. They demonstrated an uncanny aptitude for reconstituting compromised tissues, enduring injuries that would prove fatal to other species, and, under specific circumstances, even neutralizing their own potent venoms. Their distinctive faculty for ecdysis, the periodic shedding of their integument, thus crystallized into a potent allegory for the profound renewal intrinsic to the healing process. The casting off of debilitating maladies to unveil sound, revitalized organic matter beneath. More practically, Asclepius learns that snake venom, when meticulously attenuated and expertly compounded, can serve as a potent therapeutic agent. Tiny amounts of this formidable substance possess the capacity to alleviate specific forms of discomfort, diminish perilous edema, and even ameliorate various maladies that defy conventional treatments. The key to its successful application lies in comprehending the intricacies of administration and formulation, skills that demand the same rigorous scrutiny he applies to all facets of his healing endeavors. Tales of his efficacious application of venom-based medicines permeated widely, and soon numerous practitioners of the healing arts sought tutelage in these perilous yet highly efficacious therapeutic modalities. Asclepius imparted his knowledge with inherent circumspection, underscoring that engagement with such formidable compounds necessitated not merely technical proficiency, but also an abiding veneration for their inherent might. "Approach serpents as you would approach the gods," he sagely advised, "with reverence, preparation, and the understanding that you are dealing with forces greater than yourself." However, the allegorical significance of serpents transcended even its pragmatic applications. Asclepius began to understand that the ophidian creature epitomized the intrinsic dichotomies inherent within the very essence of convalescence. It embodied the intricate interplay of desolation and regeneration, of toxin and panacea, of trepidation and sagacity. Healers, he realized, must learn to engage harmoniously with these inherent antinomies, rather than striving for their artificial reconciliation. The inaugural serpent established its abode within his sanctuary, almost through a stroke of fortuitous chance. A patient recuperating from a challenging surgical procedure, noticed a benign ophidian basking contentedly on a stone wall proximate to the sanctuary's restorative precincts. Instead of banishing it, Asclepius embraced its presence as an auspicious omen. "Even the serpents seek healing here," he jested, but in his innermost thoughts, he perceived a momentous occurrence had transpired. Other snakes followed, attracted perhaps by the tranquil ambiance of the sacred grounds or the plentiful sustenance afforded by thriving populations of small creatures. Rather than perceiving them as bothersome vermin or potential threats, Asclepius fostered their continued dwelling within judicious boundaries. Those suffering, initially apprehensive of the ophidian inhabitants, progressively came to regard them as auspicious custodians of the restorative journey. A profoundly striking correlation became discernible. Patients who conquered their deep-seated apprehension of the sanctuary's serpents often experienced pivotal advancements in their personal quests for wellness. A veteran plagued by the torment of nocturnal combat terrors discovered serenity following his observation of a serpent's ecdysis, comprehending at last that he too possessed the capacity to divest himself of his distressing past. A female patient, immobilized by profound apprehension regarding her malady, commenced her recovery subsequent to a diminutive garden serpent trustingly coiling itself about her wrist during a period of contemplative meditation. "Snakes teach us about metamorphosis," Asclepius explained to a gathering of priests and healers. "They show us that which appears to signify cessation, the sloughing of the integument, the quiescent posture preceding an assault, the potent toxin, can, in reality, constitute an integral facet of life's perpetual rejuvenation. Convalescence frequently necessitates our divestment of antiquated modes of existence, mirroring the serpent's natural process of discarding their constricting epidermal layers." This profound understanding culminated in the genesis of the staff that became Asclepius's foremost iconic emblem. Fashioned from the enduring timber of the olive tree and entwined with a sinuous bronze ophidian, it represented the synthesis of innate therapeutic sagacity with the profound metamorphic potency inherent in serpents. The staff became both a utilitarian implement and a revered artifact, employed to examine patients and also to channel restorative emanations during treatments. The potency of this iconography proved so compelling that other dedicated sanctuaries of Asclepius commenced the integration of ophidian elements into their own practices. Living serpents were housed within specifically designed enclosures where patients could contemplate their demeanor and derive edification from their natural patterns. Pictorial and sculptural depictions of serpents adorned the entire expanse of these sacred healing precincts, carved in stone, painted on walls, and wrought in bronze and precious metals. However, Asclepius never permitted the allegorical significance to eclipse the tangible exigencies of engaging with actual serpents. He instituted rigorous training for dedicated ophidian caretakers who comprehended the intricate ethology of serpents and could ensure the secure containment of the creatures within the sanctuary grounds. He formulated precise guidelines for the application of venomic therapeutics that served to attenuate potential hazards whilst amplifying curative efficacy. The idealized conception of serpents as healing creatures was perpetually counterpoised by a profound deference for their intrinsic potency and inherent peril. With the burgeoning amplification of his renown, individuals commenced recounting visions in their slumber, where Asclepius manifested, attended by serpents imparting sagacious counsel pertaining to wellness. Such nocturnal apparitions became so ubiquitous that the Ophidian entwined staff ascended to become the deity's preeminent emblem, more recognizable even than his anthropomorphic form. Those convalescing awakened from their restorative dreams, experiencing the tactile perception of benign serpents gliding across their physical forms, imparting pathways of soothing warmth and alleviation where discomfort had previously resided. The medical profession embraced the Ophidian emblem with fervent approbation, intuiting profoundly that it encapsulated the very essence of the healing discipline. The act of restoration invariably entails inherent peril. The jeopardy of exacerbating conditions, the challenge of confronting unpalatable realities, the inherent uncertainty of transformation itself. The serpent serves as a constant admonition to practitioners that they engage with formidable energies demanding an approach imbued with sagacity and profound deference. As the eons unfolded, when the Roman Empire disseminated the therapeutic methodologies of Asclepius across the breadth of the then comprehended globe, the Ophidian emblem journeyed in their wake. It manifested prominently upon numismatic issues, surgical implements, and the identifying insignia of restorative institutions. The staff of Asclepius persisted beyond the demise of the ancient classical era, ultimately transmogrifying into the caduceus, which continues to denote medical establishments in the contemporary age. Drawing towards the conclusion of this insightful examination of serpents and healing symbols, one might contemplate the profound revelations these venerable perspectives offer regarding the confrontation of our inherent apprehensions. Asclepius learned that evading that which instills dread frequently bestows upon it an augmented dominion over our being. Conversely, engaging with our anxieties through a lens of deference and comprehension possesses the capacity to transmute them into wellsprings of sagacity. Perchance, a salient instruction resides herein for our individual engagement with sickness and the inevitable cessation of life. Like the serpents that Asclepius learned to work with, malady and demise are not solely adversaries to be vanquished, but rather intrinsic natural phenomena capable of imparting profound lessons concerning the intrinsic value of existence and well-being. The healing professions continue to utilize the serpent symbol because it serves as a perpetual reminder that the art of medicine achieves its zenith when it acknowledges both the inherent perils and the profound metamorphic potentials intrinsic to the journey of restoration. Water has always held restorative efficacy, and the sacred precincts dedicated to Asclepius were frequently established proximate to natural aquiferous sources whose geologically enriched waters possessed the capacity to assuage afflictions that botanical remedies and surgical interventions could not address. But the true therapeutic essence within these hallowed ablutions extended beyond mere somatic purification. It involved the profound psychic metamorphosis engendered by ceremonial ablution and the fundamental solace derived from compassionate ministration. Envision one's arrival at the therapeutic founts of Epidaurus in the nascent hours of dawn, as vapor ascends from the tepid waters, conjuring an almost numinous ambiance around the bathing pools. The aqueous effusions emanate from profound subterranean origins, laden with minerals assimilated from primeval geological strata during their extensive telluric odyssey to the surface. The water imparts a subtly ferrous savor, imbued with the distinctive nuances of sulfur, hinting at the concealed geochemical processes of the terrestrial realm. Asclepius uncovered these hydrological marvels during the nascent phases of his peregrinations, attracted by widespread accounts of their singular attributes. Indigenous pastoralists had, for generations, observed that ovine stock afflicted with dermatological conditions demonstrated amelioration subsequent to imbibing from specific pools, and that injured fauna frequently gravitated towards these springs through an innate compulsion. But it was Asclepius who singularly grasped the methodology to harness the restorative capabilities of the water in a meticulously organized fashion. The springs produced distinct hydrologic varieties originating from disparate subterranean aquifers, each endowed with a unique chemico-mineral profile and specific curative attributes. The most thermogenic founts, warmed by their proximity to geothermal conduits, demonstrated exceptional efficacy in assuaging articular discomfort and muscular rigidity. More temperate springs, replete with ferrous compounds and other essential minerals, provided succor to patients suffering from gastrointestinal disturbances and specific hematological dyscrasias. The frigid most springs, maintaining an almost glacial temperature even amidst the summer months, stimulated circulatory flow and appeared to bolster the organism's inherent immunological resilience against pathogens. However, Asclepius swiftly apprehended that the tangible characteristics of the water, while undeniably important, constituted merely a fraction of their holistic restorative potency. The very act of ablution, encompassing the ceremonial purification, the somatic comfort derived from the buoyant warmth of the water, and the transient cessation of quotidian anxieties, engendered psychic states conducive to convalescence through modalities that purely pharmacological or surgical interventions could not replicate. One can observe his meticulous formulation of the ablutionary protocols that were destined to become the established norm across the entire Asclepian sphere of influence. Those seeking remedy did not merely plunge into the founts with the casual abandon of recreational bathers. Instead, they adhered to meticulously structured regimens intended to prime both corporeal and mental faculties for the healing process. The sacred rite commenced prior to daybreak, a time when the springs attained their utmost purity and the ambient environment was maximally conducive to profound introspection. The initial stage involved purification, extending beyond mere corporeal ablution to encompass a profound symbolic lustration, thereby preparing the ailing for an impending state of rejuvenation. They first immersed themselves in unadorned water, utilizing rudimentary saponaceous preparations crafted from olive oil and wood ash to divest themselves of the grime and perspiration accumulated during their journeys. While this preparatory lustration fulfilled pragmatic necessities, it concurrently facilitated the patient's psychological translocation from the quotidian exigencies of daily existence into the hallowed precincts of restoration, daily life to the sacred space of healing. The approach to the healing springs themselves follows ancient traditions of reverence and devotion. Patients carefully offer their prayers and small sacrifices, which might include delicate flowers, gleaming coins, or deeply personal items that powerfully symbolize their profound commitment to the arduous healing process. They then enter the water slowly and deliberately, allowing their bodies to adjust gradually and gracefully to both the temperature and the intricate mineral content of the therapeutic waters. Attendants are present to gently guide those who require assistance, yet the paramount emphasis remains firmly on the individual's personal experience rather than any form of imposed treatment. Water remembers. Asclepius often tells patients with a profound voice as they prepare for their very first therapeutic bath, his words imbued with ancient wisdom. It remembers the deep, hidden places it has been, the ancient stones it has touched, the profound secrets it has learned in the deep darkness. When you enter these sacred springs, you join that ancient primordial memory. Let the water teach your body how to be well again, how to rediscover its inherent health. The healing springs attract patients with a myriad of conditions that stubbornly resist other conventional forms of treatment. A veteran soldier arrives, his joints stiffened by old, grievous wounds, to such an extent that he can barely walk without significant pain. Years of arduous military campaigns have left his body a complex map of persistent aches and severe limitations that no amount of conventional medicine has been able to effectively address. The hot springs, with their remarkably high mineral content and deeply penetrating heat, begin the slow, arduous process of restoring flexibility to joints that had previously seemed permanently frozen and unresponsive. Yet the soldier's healing encompasses far more than mere physical restoration. As he slowly soaks in the warm, comforting water, surrounded by other patients who are quietly sharing similar struggles and burdens, he begins to speak about profound experiences he has never before been able to discuss with his family or even his closest friends. The springs, in their quietude, become a sacred confessional where the deep, unacknowledged wounds of war can finally be openly acknowledged and tenderly addressed. His body loosens not solely because of the beneficial minerals in the water, but because his spirit finally finds the long-sought permission to release the immense tension it has carried for so very long. A woman comes seeking much-needed relief from a persistent skin condition that has plagued her since early childhood. The incessant itching and visible inflammation have made her acutely self-conscious and deeply withdrawn, severely limiting her ability to form meaningful relationships or participate fully and joyfully in community life. The sulfur-rich springs prove remarkably effective for her physical symptoms, offering tangible alleviation. However, the true transformation emanates from bathing alongside other women who accept her completely, without any hint of judgment or revulsion, fostering a profound sense of belonging. The communal nature of the healing springs challenges conventional social norms in ways that prove profoundly therapeutically valuable. Within the sacred water, distinctions of class, personal wealth, and social status become utterly irrelevant. Everyone enters the water naked and vulnerable, united by their common humanity and their shared, pressing need for healing. This enforced equality creates invaluable opportunities for genuine connection and deep understanding that would simply not exist in ordinary, structured social settings. Asclepius carefully designs the bathing facilities to robustly support this democratic healing philosophy. The springs are meticulously arranged so that patients with different conditions can benefit from waters specifically suited to their individual needs. Yet there are also common areas where everyone mingles freely, regardless of their specific ailments. Comfortable seating areas strategically surrounding the pools allow for quiet conversation and much-needed rest. Lush gardens provide serene privacy for those who require solitude, along with a beauty that powerfully lifts the spirits and soothes the soul. The daily rhythm of the springs closely follows natural cycles that inherently support the body's own intricate healing processes. Dawn bathing takes advantage of the body's natural awakening energy, utilizing cooler waters to vigorously invigorate circulation and prepare the body for the day's activities. Midday sessions are specifically focused on targeted therapeutic treatments, with patients spending prescribed amounts of time in waters carefully chosen for their particular conditions. Evening baths emphasize deep relaxation and thorough preparation for restorative and rejuvenating sleep. But perhaps the most innovative aspect of Asclepian hydrotherapy is its profound recognition that different patients require vastly different approaches to water healing. Some individuals benefit immensely from vigorous swimming that exercises weakened muscles and significantly improves cardiovascular health. Others require gentle, supportive floating that cradles injured limbs while allowing natural healing to proceed without undue stress. Some patients need the invigorating stimulation of mineral-rich waters, while others respond more favorably to pure spring water that cleanses without overwhelming sensitive systems, demonstrating a nuanced understanding of individual needs. Asclepius meticulously trains specialized attendants who possess a deep understanding of both the physical properties of the various springs and the complex emotional needs of diverse types of patients. These dedicated water healers learn to interpret the subtle signs that indicate when a patient has absorbed enough mineral content, when temperature changes might prove beneficial, and when social interaction should be gently encouraged, or when privacy must be respectfully honored. Water healing is an art as much as a science, he thoughtfully explains to a group of these attendants during their rigorous training. You must learn to see not just what the body needs, but what the spirit truly requires. Sometimes a patient needs to be alone with the water's tender embrace. Sometimes they need the comforting company of others who deeply understand their suffering. Your crucial job is to recognize precisely which healing the moment genuinely requires. The remarkable success of the healing springs leads to their widespread incorporation into Asclepia throughout the entire Greek world. Each sanctuary adeptly adapts the practice to its unique local water sources and specific patient populations. Mountain temples skillfully utilize icy streams and natural hot springs. Coastal sanctuaries ingeniously incorporate seawater baths that provide different mineral profiles and the added soothing benefit of tidal rhythms. Urban temples meticulously create artificial springs using water channeled from distant sources, which is then heated or cooled as precisely needed, showcasing remarkable ingenuity and adaptability. The profound tradition of therapeutic bathing spreads far beyond the healing temples themselves, significantly influencing the development of public baths throughout the ancient world. The Roman Empire, in particular, enthusiastically embraces the concept of healing through water, creating elaborate bath complexes that seamlessly combine medical treatment with vibrant social interaction. This enduring influence extends through medieval monastery infirmaries with their healing baths, and continues to modern spa treatments that still invoke the venerable name and fundamental principles of Asclepian hydrotherapy, demonstrating its timeless legacy. As you drift toward your own healing sleep tonight, perhaps you can imagine the gentle, soothing sound of sacred water flowing gracefully over ancient stones, softly carrying away the day's accumulated tensions, and tenderly preparing your spirit for the profound renewal that always comes with the dawn. The healing springs of Asclepius powerfully remind us that sometimes the simplest remedies, clean water, gentle warmth, and quiet, reflective time for introspection, remain the most potent and powerful medicines of all, touching the deepest parts of our being. But now, on cold, unforgiving mornings, Your fingers stubbornly refuse to bend properly, their joints aching with a deep, persistent pain that no amount of warming by the crackling fire can truly ease. Simple, everyday tasks, like grasping your essential tools or meticulously kneading clay, become arduous exercises in stubborn endurance. The local physicians offer a bewildering array of contradictory advice. One prescribes complete rest. Another vehemently recommends vigorous exercise. A third suggests dietary changes that seem entirely unrelated to your specific condition, adding to your confusion and frustration. The healing springs have prepared countless pilgrims for the deeper, more profound mysteries of Asclepian medicine, guiding them toward a path of understanding and solace. And now, we respectfully follow one such seeker on their personal journey to profound understanding and eventual relief. To truly grasp how these ancient sanctuaries worked their quiet, unassuming miracles, one needs to metaphorically walk in the sandals of someone who courageously made the arduous pilgrimage, experiencing it firsthand. Not seeking dramatic, instantaneous cures, but rather hoping for the gradual, transformative change that comes through patient, dedicated participation in something far larger than individual suffering. Picture yourself as Lysander, a skilled potter hailing from Corinth, whose once nimble hands have tragically developed a painful stiffness that threatens not just your livelihood and your ability to create, but your very identity and sense of self. For 3 decades, you have skillfully shaped humble clay into exquisite vessels that grace wealthy homes and adorn humble kitchens alike, a testament to your artistry. Your hands intimately know the feel of good, pliable earth, the precise pressure delicately needed to raise walls without collapse, the gentle, artistic touch that meticulously creates lips and elegant handles that please both the discerning eye and the skilled hand. The momentous decision to seek help at the nearest sanctuary does not come easily or lightly. The arduous journey will consume 3 days each way, precious time away from work that you can ill afford to lose, threatening your already fragile finances. The temple requires significant donations that you are not entirely sure you can manage to procure, adding to your considerable anxieties. Most challenging of all, seeking divine healing feels like a stark admission that your own tireless efforts have finally failed, that you desperately need help far beyond what mere human skill or ingenuity can possibly provide. More importantly, the journey itself provides invaluable time for deep reflection, away from the relentless daily pressures of work and pressing family responsibilities. For the first time in many months, you can truly think about your debilitating condition without simultaneously worrying about a growing pile of unfinished orders, the potential disappointment of valued customers, or the myriad household needs that directly depend on your meager earnings. This newfound mental space proves absolutely crucial for the profound healing process that patiently awaits you, a quiet sanctuary for your troubled mind. But desperation eventually triumphs over pride, and you find yourself resolutely walking the dusty road toward the sanctuary, carrying a small, humble pack containing offerings and just enough provisions for several days' stay. The journey itself subtly becomes an integral part of the healing process. Though you don't fully realize it at first, the very act of walking forces you to move your painful hands and arms in new, therapeutic ways, gently pumping blood through your stiff joints and gradually loosening the tight, unyielding tissues that have hardened from prolonged disuse, preparing your body for what lies ahead. The Asclepian sanctuary gradually appears, a welcome sight as you crest a gentle hill on the third day of your arduous travel. Below lies an impressive complex of buildings thoughtfully arranged around natural springs and ancient groves of sacred trees, radiating a sense of profound peace. The architecture suggests an enduring permanence and serene tranquility rather than ostentatious grandeur. Sturdy stone buildings weathered to a soft, comforting gray. Courtyards paved with smooth, ancient stones worn by the countless feet of pilgrims over centuries, and meticulously tended gardens where a variety of medicinal plants grow in carefully cultivated plots, promising natural remedies and profound solace. Upon arrival, a temple attendant, rather than a priest engaged in sacred rites, extends a welcome to new visitors at the hallowed sanctuary's threshold. Her demeanor is more akin to a medical administrator, diligently seeking pertinent details regarding one's affliction. "For what duration have you endured this suffering, Shatyam?" she inquires, meticulously inscribing notes onto a wax tablet. "Which therapeutic interventions have you previously attempted? Is there a familial predisposition to comparable ailments?" The probing nature and pragmatic emphasis of these questions elicit a degree of astonishment, feeling more akin to a consultation with a seasoned physician than an appeal to a deity, although it swiftly becomes evident that these two approaches are not mutually exclusive within this sacred precinct. The aforementioned attendant elucidates the sanctuary's established regimen with the composed efficiency characteristic of an individual who has meticulously guided innumerable pilgrims through this identical sequence. Initially, one is to immerse themselves in the sacred springs, she clarifies, gesturing towards an edifice from which plumes of steam gracefully ascend into the crisp morning atmosphere. Subsequently, one is instructed to present a heartfelt offering at Asclepius's revered altar and dedicate a period to preparatory rituals for the therapeutic slumber. The divine entity communicates with individuals in a myriad of distinct manners, yet this preparatory phase serves to ensure an optimal state of readiness to assimilate whatever profound guidance he may bestow. Yet, the tangible physiological advantages appear insignificant when juxtaposed with the profound psychological resonance derived from receiving such meticulous care and expert attention. For the first time since the onset of one's malady, there arises a profound sense of being genuinely comprehended. The dedicated attendants, having encountered a multitude of cases mirroring one's own, possess an intimate understanding. They discern precisely which particular movements precipitate discomfort, which specific postures afford solace, and how to manipulate affected articulations with utmost delicacy to avert any exacerbation of pain. The ablutionary rite unfolds with an unexpected complexity, surpassing initial expectations. Attendants expertly shepherd individuals through a succession of pools maintained at varying temperatures, elucidating the distinct therapeutic attributes inherent in each. Chilled water, they explain, serves to mitigate inflammation, whereas tepid immersions induce muscle relaxation and foster enhanced circulatory flow. Between these aquatic stages, they tenderly anoint the body with oils meticulously infused with botanical essences, specifically formulated to address one's particular affliction. Concoctions redolent of invigorating pine, refreshing mint, and an array of other unidentified verdant fragrances. "Your hands, they narrate a profound chronicle," remarks one of the bathing attendants with gentle perception, as she deftly massages aromatic emollients into stiffened digits. "They have toiled assiduously over countless years, meticulously sculpting beauty from pliant clay. Now, they must embark upon an altogether different vocation, the arduous yet rewarding endeavor of self-rejuvenation. Her sagacious pronouncements introduce an entirely novel perspective, suggesting that genuine recuperation might necessitate not merely the amelioration of symptoms, but a fundamental reorientation of one's intrinsic relationship with their cherished craft. Asclepius, the priest, articulates with quiet conviction as he carefully positions the pilgrim's vase amidst a collection of other devotional objects upon the altar, bestows his healing grace through a multitude of channels, occasionally through the profound insights gleaned from dreams, at times through the efficacious remedies we dispense, and frequently through fundamental alterations in one's daily existence and professional engagement. Cultivate an open receptivity to assistance, irrespective of the guise it assumes. This counsel, upon deeper contemplation, proves far more profound than its initial, straightforward utterance might suggest. The solemn offering ceremony transpires during the late afternoon hours, as the sun's declining rays cast a golden hue upon the temple's majestic marble columns. One presents their chosen tributes, a delicately crafted small vase, a memento from more auspicious times, a scattering of coins, and a handwritten supplication articulating fervent hopes for restoration. The priest, entrusted with receiving these sacred donations, treats each with profound and unfeigned reverence, perceiving them not as a transactional payment for services rendered, but rather as authentic expressions of unwavering faith in the intrinsic efficacy of the healing journey. One finds themselves seated alongside a woman whose persistent cephalalgia has compelled her journey from the distant polis of Athens, and directly opposite a youthful man whose grievous war wounds stubbornly resist proper cicatrization. While their specific ailments diverge markedly, their shared odyssey of seeking amelioration, a poignant amalgam of nascent hope and profound despair, coupled with a burgeoning willingness to embrace methodologies they once would have summarily dismissed, mirrors one's own personal pilgrimage with striking fidelity. The evening repast, thoughtfully prepared and served to the assembled pilgrims, represents a deliberate fusion of essential nutrition and therapeutic intent. The provisions, while unpretentious, are meticulously curated. Fish, abundant in beneficial oils known to mitigate inflammation. Vegetables specifically chosen for their inherent restorative attributes. And bread, fashioned from grains engineered to impart sustained vitality without inducing digestive distress. Even more significantly, this communal dining experience fosters invaluable opportunities to engage with other seekers, whose poignant narratives both impart solace and offer profound instruction. I have sojourned here on 3 separate occasions, confides an elderly merchant whose persistent gastric afflictions have tormented him for countless years. My inaugural visit addressed the physical discomforts of my body. The subsequent sojourn profoundly deepened my comprehension. On this current pilgrimage, my endeavor is centered upon embracing that which cannot be altered, whilst simultaneously striving to ameliorate that which remains within my capacity to improve. His sagacious pronouncements powerfully intimate that true healing encompasses not solely physiological betterment, but a far more profound metamorphosis in one's fundamental relationship with illness and inherent human limitations. The very design of the sleeping chamber itself contributes significantly to the overarching healing trajectory through its meticulously considered configuration. The room, eschewing both ostentatious luxury and stark austerity, is instead flawlessly calibrated to foster deep repose and facilitate receptive dreaming. Plush bedding gently cradles the body, ingeniously designed to prevent the formation of pressure points that might disrupt the delicate fabric of sleep. A system of gentle ventilation continuously introduces fresh air, entirely devoid of bothersome drafts. Subtle, ambient illumination permits movement without the harsh intrusion of bright light, and the perpetual, soothing murmur of flowing water establishes a natural, rhythmic cadence that profoundly encourages profound and restorative rest. Do not supplicate for unattainable remedies, counsels the priest, who presides over the evening session, his voice imbued with a quiet authority. Instead, petition for profound comprehension. What profound lessons does your present condition endeavor to impart to you? In what innovative ways might you collaborate with your inherent limitations, rather than merely engaging in a futile struggle against them? What substantive modifications within your daily existence might genuinely foster and sustain your healing? These profound inquiries deftly redirect one's focus from a yearning for miraculous intervention towards a more profound embrace of enduring wisdom. The elaborate preparation for the healing slumber commences after the evening meal, encompassing detailed instruction and sophisticated techniques designed to cultivate meaningful and therapeutic dreams. This process is emphatically not a mystical ritual, but rather a robust framework of practical guidance, meticulously refined over centuries of astute observation regarding the precise conditions that most effectively promote profoundly restorative visions. Participants are meticulously guided through breathing exercises specifically engineered to quell anxious thoughts, meditation techniques aimed at silencing incessant mental chatter, and ingenious methods for framing questions that empower the unconscious mind to process complex problems during the restorative period of sleep. The ensuing days represent a harmonious confluence of tangible treatment and profound spiritual introspection. Morning exercises, meticulously tailored to one's specific physical condition, are expertly designed to maintain crucial flexibility while simultaneously building essential strength and providing robust support to vital musculature. These movements, characterized by their gentle yet purposeful execution, evoke the graceful fluidity of a dance rather than the rigid precision of conventional medicine. Afternoon sessions are dedicated to the acquisition of novel techniques for working with clay, specifically adapted to accommodate changed abilities, rather than futilely striving against them. The initial night brings forth a sequence of dreams, yet notably absent is the dramatic, overt divine visitation that one had, perhaps unconsciously, anticipated. Instead, the dreamscape is dominated by one's workshop, not the constricted, stressful environment it has recently become, but rather the cherished sanctuary it represented in earlier years, during the nascent stages of mastering one's craft. Within this dream, the hands move with an effortless grace, shaping clay into exquisite forms that appear to emerge organically from the very earth itself. Upon awakening, the dream's intricate details are recounted to one of the sanctuary's sagacious priests, who thoughtfully assists in exploring its manifold potential interpretations. Perhaps Asclepius is gently reminding you of the profound joy you once discovered within your creative endeavors. He sagely proposes. True healing, he suggests, might transcend the mere physical restoration of one's hands extending to the rediscovery of that serene mental state which profoundly underpinned one's finest craftsmanship. However, arguably the most profoundly transformative aspect of one's sojourn emerges through the astute observation of fellow pilgrims as they navigate their individual healing trajectories. One bears witness to exhilarating moments of profound breakthrough alongside periods of disheartening discouragement, observing both dramatic, overt improvements and subtle, incremental shifts that cumulatively coalesce into significant, enduring change. Most crucially, one discerns that the unfolding process of healing seldom aligns precisely with anyone's initial preconceived expectations, yet often surpasses them in remarkably unforeseen and deeply impactful ways. Your hands possess an inherent wisdom that you may not yet have fully acknowledged, elucidates the venerable master potter, whose expertise lies in imparting adaptive techniques to pilgrims grappling with comparable conditions. They intuitively comprehend the precise needs of the clay. Place your unwavering trust in that profound knowledge, even when the movements feel distinctly different from what they once were. He meticulously demonstrates innovative methods for grasping tools that significantly mitigate strain, positions that adeptly distribute pressure more uniformly, and rhythmic approaches to work that judiciously incorporate periods of rest before the insidious onset of debilitating fatigue. A diligent farmer, for instance, learns to skillfully manage his chronic lumbar pain, not through its complete eradication, but rather by assiduously cultivating meticulous work rhythms specifically designed to preempt debilitating flare-ups. A courageous soldier discovers that his battle-hardened scars are not merely physical reminders, but profound repositories of wisdom concerning survival and unwavering courage, insights that now empower him to guide younger recruits away from avoidable perils. An astute merchant finds that her pervasive chronic anxiety, when subjected to proper understanding and introspection, actually furnishes invaluable insights into volatile market conditions, nuances that frequently elude her less perceptive trading counterparts. One's personal healing journey mirrors this overarching pattern of gradual revelation rather than a sudden, miraculous panacea. By the culmination of the stay, while the hands have not miraculously regained their youthful flexibility, they have nonetheless acquired novel methodologies for working that effectively diminish pain while steadfastly preserving the intricate skill. More significantly, a profoundly altered relationship with the condition has blossomed, viewing it not as an immutable limitation, but rather as an inviting gateway to a deeper, more nuanced mastery. The conclusive ceremony preceding departure entails the meticulous creation of a votive offering, a tangible artifact articulating one's profound experiences at the sanctuary. In stark contrast to the hopeful supplications tendered upon arrival, this inscribed tablet meticulously records heartfelt gratitude for the specific insights gleaned and the tangible improvements attained. I arrived here seeking the restoration of my former capabilities, one inscribes, yet I depart endowed with superior ones. As the individual pilgrim departs from the sacred precinct, retracing the familiar path that had guided them there days earlier, they carry more than just practical methods for managing their specific condition. They have encountered and assimilated a comprehensive model for approaching life's difficulties, which skillfully integrates rational therapeutic strategies with profound spiritual receptiveness, individual endeavor with robust collective support, and an acceptance of limitations with persistent striving towards enhancement. The return journey now provides the individual with ample time to integrate these newfound insights into their daily existence. The pilgrim diligently practices the prescribed exercises learned at the sanctuary, experiments cautiously with fresh techniques for manipulating clay, and gradually implements thoughtful alterations in their workshop routines, all designed to foster enduring health rather than merely short-term productivity. Thus, the healing continues at home, as the individual now possesses the profound understanding of how to actively participate in their own ongoing restoration. Perhaps the most striking aspect of the pilgrim's entire experience was its profound ordinariness. Despite unfolding within a hallowed setting consecrated to divine healing, the true marvel was not a dramatic, sudden intervention, but rather a gradual transformation cultivated through patient and holistic attention to the entire person, encompassing body, mind, and spirit in unified harmony. This distinct approach to healing, originally pioneered within Asclepius's venerable sanctuaries, continues to exert its influence on therapeutic practices in ways both evident and subtle. As one follows the individual's narrative from profound suffering through earnest seeking to gradual recovery, it becomes apparent how the sanctuary's methodology honors both human initiative and divine aid. The gods graciously provide wisdom and opportune moments, yet pilgrims are still tasked with the daily labor of applying these insights to their actual lives. Healing, therefore, becomes a profound collaboration between earthly effort and heavenly grace, neither sufficient on its own, but together capable of achieving a transformative change that neither could accomplish independently. One might vividly envision individuals traversing the venerable ruins of Epidaurus, the preeminent among all Asclepian sanctuaries, where a multitude of these votive tablets once adorned the sacrosanct edifices. While the majority have succumbed to the relentless march of ages and the depredations of avaricious seekers, a sufficient number endured to offer illuminating insights into the existences of those who discovered within these hallowed grounds something utterly unattainable elsewhere. Not solely corporeal restoration, but also a profound reinvigoration of optimism and existential direction, rendering life once more profoundly worthwhile. The subtle, yet profound, transformation undergone by innumerable pilgrims, akin to the legendary Lysander, finds its most enduring expression within the enduring stone tablets that profoundly grateful patients meticulously deposited within Asclepius's temples. These venerable inscriptions, rendered smooth by countless centuries of elemental exposure and devout human contact, safeguard not merely singular narratives of recovery, but also serve as a communal declaration concerning the operational principles of ancient medicine, showcasing its gentle yet potent miracles achieved through unwavering patience, profound wisdom, and meticulous attention to the entirety of the human being. The very physical presence of these commemorative tablets offers equally profound revelations regarding ancient therapeutic practices, as do the eloquent words meticulously etched upon their facades. Their construction utilized indigenous geological material, opulent marble when affluent benefactors could command such extravagance. Yet more frequently, humble limestone or even ephemeral wood, which has long since disintegrated into fine particulate matter. The textual content of these inscriptions exhibited a remarkable spectrum, ranging from intricate literary formulations meticulously crafted by erudite professional scribes to sincere, emotionally resonant declarations painstakingly carved by the patients themselves, utilizing whatever rudimentary artistic aptitude they possessed. Consider the case of Ambrosia of Athens, whose precious eyesight had been tragically afflicted by an opacification of the ocular lens, commonly known as cataracts. She sought solace and slumber within the sanctuary's hallowed confines, and, during her repose, experienced a divine epiphanic dream. In this somnolent state, it appeared to her that the benevolent deity himself drew near and gently parted her eyelids with his divine digits. Upon the breaking of dawn, she miraculously regained full visual acuity. This particular inscription, unearthed in disparate fragments and meticulously reassembled through diligent scholarly effort, stands as a representative example among hundreds of similar testimonies to therapeutic success, demonstrating a unique synthesis of discernible practical treatment with profound elements that transcend facile rationalization. Yet another venerable tablet recounts the extraordinary saga of Aristo of Troezen, a woman who had endured a protracted gestational state spanning half a decade without experiencing parturition. Following a night of restorative sleep within the sanctuary's sacred precincts, she envisioned a sacred serpent making contact with her abdomen in a dream. Remarkably, within the subsequent year, she delivered a healthy male offspring. Contemporary physiological understanding posits that this particular instance likely involved some manifestation of a pseudocyesis, or false pregnancy, or perhaps a complex gynecological condition that demonstrably responded to the synergistic combination of physical therapeutic interventions and profound psychological encouragement, both integral components of the sanctuary's integrative healing philosophy. One might readily perceive how these ancient medical records diverge significantly from contemporary clinical reports, primarily in their unique amalgamation of empirical medical assessment with profound theological exegesis. The vivid description pertaining to Ambrosia's cataract surgery, for that is, in all likelihood, the highly probable medical procedure that transpired, albeit artfully cloaked in a sacred narrative framework, encompasses intricate details that strongly suggest authentic surgical intervention, all while meticulously preserving the hallowed stylistic register consonant with the context of divine healing. Consider the plight of Hermodocos of Lampsacus, who was tragically afflicted by a debilitating corporeal paralysis. During his period of restorative sleep within the sanctuary, divine intervention restored his health, and the god subsequently enjoined him to convey to the temple the most substantial lithic mass he was capable of transporting as a votive offering of gratitude. The man, now invigorated, successfully brought the colossal megalith, which to this day reposes prominently before the sacred edifice. This very stone still exists, a truly massive block that would undoubtedly present an arduous feat, even for an able-bodied individual to maneuver, a palpable testament to a profound healing that reinstated not merely locomotive faculty, but also formidable vigor and burgeoning self-assurance. The collective body of inscriptions profoundly reveals that Asclepian healing operated as much through profound mental and emotional metamorphosis as it did through direct corporeal therapeutic procedures. Numerous tablets meticulously detail conditions that, in contemporary medical parlance, would be classified as somatoform disorders, presenting as genuine physiological symptoms originating from profound affective or existential disquietude that proved intractable when approached through exclusively biomedical methodologies. The temple's comprehensive approach, which meticulously addressed the body, mind, and spirit in unified concert, frequently achieved extraordinary outcomes in cases that utterly perplexed practitioners of solely corporeal healing. However, it is crucial to note that not all the preserved inscriptions recount spectacular, instantaneous recoveries. A significant number instead document more nuanced, incremental ameliorations that, nonetheless, fundamentally reoriented individual destinies. Consider Gorgias the potter, who arrived at the sanctuary with manual dexterity severely impeded for ceramic artistry. Through divine tutelage, he assimilated innovative methodologies for crafting earthenware, techniques that respectfully honored both his physical constraints and his innate craftsmanship. He ultimately departed profoundly grateful, not for the full restoration of the hands he once possessed, but for the sagacity to optimally leverage his current manual capabilities. Furthermore, these invaluable tablets safeguard compelling indications of the sanctuary's profound comprehension of what contemporary medical science now designates as the neurobiological response to symbolic therapeutic intervention, or the placebo effect. This phenomenon encapsulates the restorative potential inherent in optimistic anticipation and unwavering belief, particularly when such sentiments are bolstered by authentic solicitude and meticulous regard from caregivers. Consider the account of Sostrata of Thebes, a woman afflicted by an internal parasitic infestation. After seeking repose within the sanctuary, she dreamed that the god's sons meticulously extracted the verminous organisms from her belly. Upon awakening, she discovered herself completely healed. This narrative, while imbued with spiritual imagery, strongly suggests expert therapeutic management of a helminthic affliction, artfully presented in terms that respectfully honored both tangible clinical procedures and ethereal celestial succor. One can readily envision these very inscriptions being diligently perused by recent supplicants arriving at the sanctuary, individuals suffering from grave maladies and ardently desiring affirmation that their arduous pilgrimage was not undertaken fruitlessly. The venerable tablets functioned dually as both meticulous clinical documentation and profound motivational inspiration, demonstrably illustrating that others grappling with analogous conditions had indeed discovered efficacious assistance within these sacred confines. This inherent didactic and inspirational function rendered the tablets inherently curative instruments in themselves, instilling a profound sense of hope that empowered patients to engage with greater profundity in their own restorative processes. These subtler narrative accounts perhaps unveil more profoundly the fundamental essence of Asclepian healing than do the spectacular recoveries that captivated the collective ancient psyche. The sanctuary's sagacious approach acknowledged that true healing does not invariably signify a reversion to prior physiological equilibrium. Instead, it often entailed discovering innovative methodologies to flourish meaningfully despite prevailing constraints. This compassionate philosophy extended a lifeline of hope to patients whose intractable conditions defied absolute eradication, yet could nonetheless be navigated with honor and intentionality, fostering a life rich in dignity and purpose. Certain inscriptions further reveal the sanctuary's remarkable readiness to undertake therapeutic endeavors for conditions that other contemporary physicians frequently deemed incurable. Aulus, for instance, arrived bereft of sight and solitary, guided only by his loyal canine companion. The benevolent deity, through divine intervention, reinstated his visual faculty, and he subsequently left in exultation, obviating the necessity of his devoted animal's direction. The unadorned, factual narrative style of this account strongly suggests that addressing blindness, while undeniably challenging, was not deemed an insurmountable challenge within the hallowed confines of Epidaurus. The sheer heterogeneity of afflictions meticulously detailed within the tablets unequivocally demonstrates the expansive breadth and inclusivity of Asclepian medicine. Fractured bones, suppurating wounds, persistent chronic pain, various mental disorders, issues pertaining to fertility, and enigmatic ailments that eluded precise nosological categorization all received therapeutic care within the hallowed sanctuaries. This remarkable breadth strongly suggests the existence of a holistic medical paradigm that regarded every manifestation of human affliction as meriting dedicated focus and the genuine prospect of amelioration. Pandora of Thessaly presented her daughter, a child who had remained anarthrous since her formative years. Following 3 nights spent within the sanctuary's restorative embrace, the child surprisingly uttered vocalizations during nocturnal slumber, and from that pivotal day forward, she communicated with typical fluency. Cases such as this provide tantalizing glimpses into the sanctuary's nuanced comprehension of psychogenic distress and its corporeal expressions, employing methodologies entirely consonant with contemporary psychological interventions. Furthermore, stratigraphic findings indicate that a considerable number of patients resided within the sanctuaries for protracted durations, fostering ephemeral societal groupings of individuals coalesced by their collective quest for restoration. The inscriptions on occasion allude to these interpersonal bonds. A No of Enia, for instance, expresses profound gratitude not solely to the divine entity, but also to her comrades in spiritual journey, whose unwavering camaraderie rendered tolerable the protracted odyssey towards holistic well-being. The inherent curative efficacy of communal engagement and shared experience with others confronting analogous adversities thus imparted an additional, vital facet to the comprehensive healing process. Finally, the inscriptions unequivocally reveal the egalitarian character of Asclepian healing. Individuals of disparate economic status, varying social servitude, and diverse civic affiliations, the opulent and the impoverished, the enslaved and the emancipated, the alien and the native-born, all meticulously deposited expressions of profound appreciation. Consider the case of Nicerata, an enslaved female from Messene, who dreamed that the benevolent deity excised the tumescence from her cervical region. Her owner, witnessing the miraculous recovery, granted her emancipation and subsequently dedicated this commemorative tablet. Thus, therapeutic efficacy superseded societal demarcations in profound ways, a feat rarely matched by other venerable establishments of the ancient world. The profound impact of these venerable institutions resonates through the ages, showcasing an unparalleled commitment to human well-being. Yet, it is perhaps the most poignant of these ancient records that transcend mere physical restoration, delving into the realm of spiritual renewal. Consider the plight of Antiphon, a man utterly bereft, his family tragically claimed by pestilence, and his fertile lands withered by an unrelenting drought. Within these sacred confines, he discovered not a miraculous reversal of his misfortunes, but rather an inner fortitude, a resilient spirit enabling him to reconstruct his existence from the shattered remnants of his former life. These compelling narratives strongly suggest that the sanctuaries functioned as rudimentary yet effective counseling centers, providing individuals with a vital space to confront and process profound grief and deep-seated trauma. This therapeutic environment empowered them to forge ahead, imbuing their lives with renewed purpose and meaning. Some stone tablets meticulously document healing journeys that spanned multiple visits over considerable durations, sometimes several years. Aristion of Hali, for instance, records his third pilgrimage, each successive visit deepening his comprehension of his ailment and enhancing his proficiency in managing its symptoms. His dedication inscribed on this tablet speaks not of a complete cure, but rather of a transformative odyssey that has just begun. Such inscriptions offer a refreshingly realistic perspective on healing, portraying it as an intricate, ongoing process rather than a singular, dramatic intervention. The vernacular employed in these ancient inscriptions frequently mirrors the authentic voices of the patients themselves, steering clear of overly formal or esoteric religious terminology. One deeply moved pilgrim succinctly captures this sentiment, writing, "I arrived here barely clinging to life and depart ready to truly live again." The sheer simplicity and unvarnished directness embedded in such declarations possess a persuasive power far exceeding any elaborate theological discourse. These individuals are not articulating abstract doctrines. Instead, they are vividly describing tangible, life-altering shifts in their everyday experiences. Contemporary scholars meticulously analyzing the surviving inscriptions have discerned discernible patterns, suggesting the existence of standardized therapeutic approaches tailored to a diverse array of conditions. Dream interpretation and therapy were notably emphasized for psychological afflictions, while precise surgical interventions were reserved for physical injuries. Dietary adjustments and comprehensive lifestyle modifications were prescribed for chronic conditions, and spiritual guidance was offered for profound existential crises. The cumulative evidence from these tablets unveils a medical system of remarkable sophistication, adept at customizing treatments to specific individual needs rather than resorting to generic, one-size-fits-all remedies. Euphrates, a valiant soldier, initially perceived his grievous wounds as ignominious emblems of cowardice. However, within these hallowed grounds, he underwent a profound re-education, learning to view them as irrefutable proof of his immense courage. His healing odyssey commenced not with the regeneration of flesh, but with the dawning of a fresh understanding. Inscriptions of this nature illuminate the sanctuary's progressive approach to trauma, an approach that remarkably anticipates modern psychological insights into how the process of meaning-making profoundly influences recovery from both physical and emotional wounds. Perhaps even more astonishingly, some inscriptions chronicle instances where patients received healing not for themselves, but on behalf of cherished loved ones who were physically unable to undertake the arduous journey. Xenophon, for example, experienced a vivid dream of treatment for his son's lameness. Upon returning home, he diligently applied the divine insights imparted to him, and astonishingly, his son now walks without impediment. These compelling accounts suggest a remarkably sophisticated comprehension of how healing knowledge could be effectively transmitted and applied beyond the tangible confines of the sanctuary itself. Beyond their therapeutic role, the tablets also furnish invaluable evidence of the sanctuary's significant educational function. Numerous grateful patients meticulously recorded not merely their personal recovery, but also the invaluable medical knowledge they acquired, which subsequently enabled them to successfully treat their family members and neighbors. Katie, a skilled midwife, learned innovative methods for navigating challenging births within these walls, techniques that have since preserved the lives of countless mothers and infants in her community. In essence, these sanctuaries served as vital medical academies, where practical, life-saving knowledge was generously disseminated among those who could effectively utilize it to alleviate the suffering of others. As the relentless forces of weather and time have inexorably eroded the majority of these magnificent stone testimonies, we are left with tantalizing fragments that merely hint at thousands of individual narratives, stories of suffering transmuted into radiant hope, of limitations transcended through profound acceptance, and of lives meticulously restored through the patient synergy of human ingenuity and divine benevolence. These poignant inscriptions serve as a powerful reminder that behind every monumental medical breakthrough lie innumerable personal sagas of individuals who possess the audacity to believe that their pain held significance and that their healing was indeed attainable. Tonight, as you find solace in the tranquil embrace of darkness, one might vividly imagine these ancient voices resonating across the millennia, not merely recounting the dramatic, attention-grabbing cures, but also celebrating the myriad smaller victories that rendered ordinary existence bearable once more. Perhaps the most profound healing chronicled within these tablets is the very restoration of hope itself, the miraculous revelation that even in the most profound depths of illness, the transformative potential forever endures. Our narrative journey through the extraordinary life and enduring legacy of Asclepius culminates in that enigmatic juncture when the mortal healer transcends his earthly existence and assumes his rightful place among the celestial pantheon. Yet this profound metamorphosis is not achieved through conquest or grandiose displays of power. Instead, it emerges organically from a life wholly dedicated to ameliorating suffering, one patient at a time, until the permeable boundary between the human and the divine gently dissolves in the steadfast persistence of compassionate service. One can readily envision the aging Asclepius in the twilight of his mortal years, his hair as pristine as temple marble, his hands bearing the indelible marks of innumerable healings, yet still remarkably steady as they tenderly caress a patient's fevered brow. He moves with a more measured pace now, but his touch remains as gentle and reassuring as it was in his youth, when the wise centaur Chiron first instructed him in the art of binding wounds within the tranquil forest sanctuary. The temples consecrated in his honor have proliferated across the vast expanse of the Greek world, yet he consistently demonstrates a preference for the quiet, intimate work of individual healing over the ceremonial grandeur of divine worship. The formidable reputation that has burgeoned around him over decades of unwavering service presents both extraordinary opportunities and unforeseen challenges. Kings solicit his sagacious counsel for devastating plagues that imperil their realms. Affluent families offer vast fortunes in exchange for his personal attention to their various ailments. Esteemed fellow physicians traverse immense distances to meticulously learn his innovative techniques and to profoundly grasp his unique methodologies. Despite this widespread acclaim, Asclepius remains most authentically himself in unassuming chambers where ordinary individuals grapple with profound pain and debilitating fear, requiring not merely medical intervention, but the profound reassurance that their suffering is genuinely acknowledged and deeply cared for. However, unparalleled success in the art of healing invariably brings its own intricate complications. As Asclepius's extraordinary abilities burgeon far beyond anything that purely mortal medicine could conceivably achieve, he begins to attract unwelcome attention from formidable entities who view his humanitarian work with suspicion rather than heartfelt gratitude. The other gods, ensconced securely within their traditional domains of power, grow increasingly disquieted by a healer whose profound influence propagates through genuine service and compassion, rather than through coercion or fear-induced worship. The pivotal moment arrives when Asclepius embarks upon a path of not merely healing the sick, but astonishingly raising the dead, thereby transgressing sacred boundaries that even divine healers were never meant to breach. The inaugural instance involves a young mother who tragically succumbs during childbirth, despite his most fervent efforts to save her. Her infant miraculously survives, but the husband's overwhelming grief profoundly moves Asclepius to attempt an unprecedented feat. Drawing upon the potent divine power inherited from his father, Apollo, he summons the woman's spirit back from the shadowy depths of the underworld and restores her to life. The resurrection proves successful, and for a fleeting moment, the unadulterated joy of a reunited family appears to unequivocally justify this unparalleled intervention. Yet, such dramatic violations of the natural order cannot remain concealed indefinitely, and word of this astounding miracle rapidly disseminates throughout the entire region. Soon, desperate relatives from every corner of Greece seek out Asclepius, reverently bearing the lifeless bodies of their cherished loved ones and imploring him to perform similar resurrections. Each new case presents an agonizing moral dilemma. How can a healer who has dedicated his entire existence to preserving life possibly refuse to restore it when he possesses the extraordinary power to do so? Nevertheless, Asclepius gradually begins to comprehend that his acts of resurrection fundamentally imperil the delicate order that sustains the very functioning of the world. If death becomes a reversible state, what then becomes of the intrinsic natural cycles that govern existence? What becomes of the hard-won wisdom that invariably emerges from the profound acceptance of mortality? Hades, the formidable deity of the underworld, observes with mounting alarm as the steady, immutable flow of souls into his dominion dwindles to an alarming trickle. The meticulously maintained equilibrium between life and death, a balance absolutely essential to the cosmos itself, begins to perceptibly waver under the relentless pressure of Asclepius's compassionate interventions. Other gods discover their own sacred domains adversely affected as mortals who were destined to die continue to live, thereby fundamentally altering the ingrained patterns of worship, warfare, and natural succession that have meticulously structured divine authority for countless millennia. Zeus himself grows profoundly concerned, not out of petty jealousy regarding Asclepius's burgeoning power, but from a profound understanding that certain inviolable boundaries exist, not to arbitrarily limit compassion, but to meticulously preserve the overarching harmony within which genuine compassion can effectively operate. The king of the gods confronts a momentous decision that will irrevocably define the intrinsic relationship between divine power and moral responsibility. Should he permit unlimited healing that gravely jeopardizes cosmic order, or should he decisively stop a healer whose sole transgression is caring too profoundly about human suffering? The final, inexorable confrontation arrives, not amidst the tumultuous spectacle of thunder and earthquakes, but with a single, perfectly aimed thunderbolt that strikes Asclepius precisely as he meticulously works over yet another patient who is already tragically expired. The divine execution unfolds with terrifying swiftness, without any prior warning or opportunity for final utterances. One instant, the devoted healer is intently bent over his patient in profound concentration. The very next, both lie motionless beneath the crushing weight of Zeus's immutable judgment. However, instead of tragically concluding his remarkable story, This divine execution paradoxically becomes Asclepius's ultimate transformation. Apollo, his divine father, mourns his son's death with such profound anguish that his grief threatens to plunge the entire world into an eternal, inky darkness. The sun god's overwhelming sorrow moves even Zeus, the unyielding king of the gods, to reconsider his harsh judgment, ultimately leading to a judicious compromise that honors both cosmic justice and profound compassion. Zeus majestically places Asclepius among the celestial luminaries as the constellation of Ophiuchus, the revered serpent-bearer, thereby ensuring that his benevolent influence will endure for all eternity. More significantly, the healer's immortal spirit assumes its rightful place within the exalted pantheon of gods, not as a conquering hero or an autocratic ruler, but as something far rarer and more profound. A divine being whose immense power emanates entirely from a boundless wellspring of compassion. Unlike other deities who imperiously demand sacrifice and absolute submission, Asclepius magnanimously offers healing that requests nothing in return, save for the sincere commitment to utilize recovered health wisely and benevolently. His hallowed temples become sacred sanctuaries where suffering is met with profound understanding rather than harsh judgment. The true enduring miracle of Asclepius's deification is not merely that a mortal ascended to godhood, but rather that he became a god who intimately remembers what it felt like to be profoundly mortal. His divine healing retains the gentle patience meticulously cultivated during his human years. The practical wisdom sagaciously gained from Chiron's profound teaching, and the profound humility that invariably arises from working within inherent limitations rather than simply overwhelming them with raw, unbridled power. The sanctuaries devoted to the revered Asclepius continue their sacred operations, meticulously adhering to the foundational principles he established during his earthly existence. Within these hallowed grounds, the journey toward well-being unfolds through a comprehensive synergy of pragmatic medical applications, empathetic psychological solace, and a profound journey of spiritual metamorphosis. Patients who seek succor here discover not merely the alleviation of physical ailments, but a profound rejuvenation of their inner spirit, a restoration of hope, and a renewed sense of purpose. The iconic staff entwined with a serpent thus becomes a powerful emblem, honoring both the immense capacity for healing and the crucial self-restraint indispensable for true and lasting recovery. Perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of Asclepius's elevation to divinity is that it does not detach him from the crucible of human suffering. Rather, it intensifies and deepens his empathetic connection to it. As a celestial being, he possesses the unique ability to manifest his presence concurrently across all his myriad sanctuaries, imparting restorative dreams to countless supplicants, subtly guiding medical practitioners toward accurate diagnoses, and infusing individuals with the spiritual fortitude required to navigate and endure chronic conditions that may defy complete eradication. The pervasive influence of this beneficent deity extends significantly beyond the physical confines of his sacred temples. Every physician who conscientiously merges acute technical proficiency with an authentic wellspring of compassion implicitly carries forward the enduring legacy of Asclepius. Likewise, every healer who embraces a holistic approach, attending to the entirety of an individual rather than merely isolated symptoms, unequivocally honors his pioneering methodology. Furthermore, Each medical breakthrough that steadfastly prioritizes the paramount welfare of the patient over the allure of professional renown or institutional prestige unmistakably reflects his core values. However, Asclepius's most profound and enduring contribution to humanity may well be his eloquent demonstration that divine omnipotence and profound moral accountability are not antithetical concepts, but rather harmonious partners. His exemplary readiness to acknowledge and accept the inherent limits of his formidable abilities, even to the ultimate point of embracing his own mortality, powerfully illustrates that authentic healing demands a sagacious discernment regarding precisely when to actively intervene and, conversely, when to respectfully concede to the unalterable realities that transcend human capacity. This profound understanding, far from diminishing his power, renders it immeasurably more efficacious, for it operates in graceful concert with the natural order of existence, rather than in futile opposition to it. The iconic serpent, gracefully coiled around his staff, serves as an exquisitely fitting emblem for this meticulously balanced approach to the potent forces of healing. Snakes, by their very nature, are creatures of inherent danger, capable of inflicting death with their potent venom. Yet remarkably, that very same venom, when meticulously prepared and judiciously administered, possesses the profound capacity to serve as life-saving medicine. This potent symbol serves as a perpetual reminder that the act of healing invariably entails navigating and collaborating with forces that possess the dual potential to harm as well as to help, thereby necessitating both profound knowledge and discerning wisdom for their safe and effective application. As the relentless march of centuries progressed, the reverence for Asclepius gradually diffused throughout the vast expanse of the Mediterranean world and far beyond its shores. Illustrious Roman emperors frequently sought counsel from his enigmatic oracles. Burgeoning Christian communities thoughtfully adapted his compassionate healing practices, and erudite Islamic physicians diligently studied and integrated his methodologies. His profound influence effortlessly transcends conventional religious and cultural divides precisely because it speaks to the universal human experience of suffering and the equally pervasive and enduring hope for solace and relief. Contemporary medicine demonstrably retains clear and indelible traces of Asclepian influence, ranging from the often utilized caduceus symbol by various medical organizations to the contemporary understanding that comprehensive healing encompasses intricate psychological and social determinants, in addition to purely physical interventions. The pioneering holistic approach, meticulously cultivated within his ancient sanctuaries, continues its dynamic evolution within modern practices that endeavor to treat patients as integrated, whole persons, rather than mere collections of disparate symptoms. Yet perhaps the most profoundly enduring facet of Asclepius's magnificent legacy is the simple, yet revolutionary recognition that healing constitutes an inherently sacred activity. This sanctity arises not from a prerequisite for supernatural intervention, but rather from its embodiment of the highest and most compassionate application of human skill in selfless service to human welfare. Every genuine act of healing, from the intricate surgical procedures that miraculously preserve lives to the gentle, comforting words whispered to the dying, participates in the boundless, divine compassion that Asclepius so perfectly personified. As one drifts into the quietude of sleep tonight, it is worthwhile to ponder the subtle yet profound revolution that Asclepius so eloquently represents. In a historical epoch dominated by deities who often demanded rigorous sacrifice and absolute submission, he extended a profoundly different offering, a path of healing that honored both the inherent dignity of the human spirit and the profound depths of divine wisdom. His enduring legacy thrives not merely within the sterile corridors of hospitals and the hallowed halls of medical schools, but rather in every singular moment when an individual consciously chooses profound compassion over unfeeling indifference, when skilled hands diligently toil to alleviate suffering, and when an unwavering flicker of hope valiantly persists despite overwhelming adversity. The mortal man who ascended to become the venerable god of healing imparts a timeless lesson. The true divinity is not predicated upon wielding power over others, but rather upon the patient, unwavering dedication to ameliorating the lives of those around us. His captivating narrative serves as a poignant reminder that the most profound and transformative changes frequently emerge not from dramatic, sweeping gestures, but through persistent, gentle acts of service, meticulously performed with profound empathy and guided by a sagacious wisdom that gracefully acknowledges both what can be altered and what must, with dignity, be accepted. Rest peacefully tonight, secure in the knowledge that Asclepius's gentle, pervasive influence continues to permeate our intricate world like an unseen subterranean spring, quietly surfacing wherever genuine healing transpires and whenever love triumphs over fear. In every physician's meticulous diagnosis, in every nurse's tender touch, and in every precious moment when suffering is met with profound understanding rather than harsh judgment, the benevolent God of healing steadfastly continues his eternal work of transforming profound pain into enduring hope, one patient at a time. A particular epoch, or a time, often represents a distinct segment within the grand continuum of human experience, marked by its own unique confluence of circumstances and prevailing sentiments. This designated period frequently encapsulates a specific set of societal norms, technological advancements, political landscapes, or cultural currents that collectively define its character and differentiate it from preceding or subsequent eras. Such a juncture becomes a significant point of reference, inviting meticulous examination by scholars and observers seeking to comprehend the underlying dynamics that shaped its trajectory and the profound implications it bore for the generations living through it. It is an interval characterized by its singular challenges and opportunities, fostering specific innovations, transformative societal shifts, or emergent philosophical paradigms that contribute to its indelible identity within the unfolding narrative of civilization. The essence of a time, therefore, resides not solely in its chronological demarcation, but in the distinctive ethos and enduring impact it imparts upon the collective consciousness.